Hi, my name is Tanya, and I research and study theoretical physics, quantum theory, cosmology, medicine. I study the universe, and I'm going to show you an equation, series of numbers, and tell you a story. And the story explains Albert Einstein and his theory. Now, my name is Tanya Harris, and I was born 7/3/1963. Was born 7/3/1963. Now, Einstein's theory explains that energy became matter and becomes energy. Now, I can explain how that works. So, bear with me and understand that every single word we speak, every number we write down becomes a part of your next reality. So, what do we know? We know energy takes new form. In the Bible, that would be born into the sins of your parents. We have cause and effect. Cause and effect. In the Bible, that's judge not, lest ye be judged. Okay, then we have string theory. That would be a soul. Now, we have the universe. If we have the birth of a nation, we have the birth of a universe. Now, in Plato, they have this, the allegory. In reality, that would be the universe, would be God. And if God is born and man has named it one thing, the Big Bang Theory, I prefer to call it a birth. And that birth was God. Only when God begins to realize itself, it begins as energy, and energy manifests into matter. Now, this is the part that can get a little overwhelming for some people if you believe in a certain way or you understand things a certain way. But the universe is a language. Everything you say is an actual language outside of your own language and your own form of communicating. You're actually communicating much bigger things. But because we're so self-involved because of this energy that manifested, and we are the physiological reality of God. Now, some people don't believe in God. Now, God's not some just genie sitting there granting wishes, because that wouldn't be fair. And it says that God is fair. So in energy, we know you have cause and you have effect. Some people call that karma. Now, if you have karma, you also have the letters in the word karma. Now, that means if something bad is happening, they themselves are experiencing karma. So that's what I do. I try to figure out what people are actually doing to create this karma. Now, I've gone back which is called intention. I've gone back in time. There's no portal. I didn't go through any portal. I went into the past. I figured out who I was. This is the part that people are going to disagree with, but you don't disagree with math, and the math is there. So I was Marilyn Monroe. I would have chosen to be someone different, but I was Marilyn Monroe. Albert Einstein became Princess Diana. Now I'm going to show you the math. Became Princess Diana. And then became my son Noah. And I know where Noah is now, but I'm not going to tell you. But my son Noah passed away on 9/22/2020. However, his body was discovered with his friend Sophie, and Sophie was 20. Now, when I look at Albert Einstein's past work, where he moved, the date he won his awards, the ages, all of them aligned. Now, Albert Einstein made a comment, God doesn't roll dice. Firstly, dice is 1. Die is 2. So then you would have Diana. Now, all of these things may not seem relevant, but all energy, all language, all words, all patterns, all colors, they all help you predict everything that's going to occur. Just like this. When I was researching, I didn't research every detail, and I bought that painting to put my son's artwork in, and I painted the frame, and then I put that up, and then I started understanding that Einstein took violin lessons. Now, the day he started taking violin lessons, that would correspond with when I purchased that. I haven't done the math on that. I do the math on the things that other people will pay attention to right away. So, says God doesn't roll dice. My son Noah had this tattoo on his face, and he had die on his face, 2 of them. And well, dice. He had 2 dice on his face. And he didn't know why he got that. And then he got a Playboy bunny tattooed under his ear. And he didn't know why he got that either. He just got it. But he didn't know that I was Marilyn Monroe in my past life, and he didn't know that he was Albert Einstein in his past life. Now, okay, I'm going to show you a simple equation that happened when I sent Stephen Hawking my numbers. I sent Stephen Hawking my numbers in February of 2018. That's February 2018. February is also 22018. So then we have the number 2. And then we have the number 2 again. So that's 22. So March 1st, which is number 3, 2018, Stephen Hawking presented his final paper. He said, I have proof. I had sent him the numbers he needed. He was able to do a quick calculation. I'm sure it was really simple at that point. They built this computer to try to find this series of numbers that the universe revolves around. They were convinced that there is a person, that the whole universe revolves around these numbers. Now, it's not that simple, and I'm going to show you how. Now, that series of numbers is connected to everyone. That's why it's called relativity. we are all related. So I'm showing how energy manifests into your reality. So just know that every time you die, you're born as you're dying because energy is taking new form. So how you die is a reflection of what you did in your past life. And how you live is a reflection of what you did in your past life. You're born into the energy that you leave behind. Your energy it's like, here's your energy, it's living, right? You're living, you're like, hey, I'm living my dream. And you don't realize there's like a credit card type energy. It's saving all of your energy, negative and positive, and in your next life it's right there. And that's what you're born into. So if you're an arrogant, egotistical, blah blah blah, whatever, but it's based on things you did in your past life and things you judge, that's where it comes into a particle. You have all this different energy, all of these things going around at the same time. Now the black hole is the collective of the hypocrisy of all of this energy. So I'm going to show you this equation, and it's pretty simple. So March. Now, Stephen Hawking, in his past life, he was a music composer, and he wrote The March. So now I have March, right? So he prophesied his passing in March, but he also prophesied Emperor Wu of Han also passed in March 31st BC. So we have March 31st. Then we have Princess Diana, who passed on the 31st day. So all of these numbers would keep repeating themselves. And in science, it's known that it takes 31 years to decipher a message from the universe, whom is God. So it takes me a few minutes. It doesn't take me 31 years. But there was that moment, 31 years to the day I met my ex, we had court. I met him on February 7th. We had court on February 7th. 31 years later. That's not a coincidence. So, and then we had to go back to court on March 2nd, 2018. I purchased my house in 2005 in February, also February. I purchased my house for $799,000. Now, when I sold my house, I sold it for $699,000. But because I owed a debt on back house payments, I only got $50,000. So it was like $49,000. So then I ended up spending more money on my house than I could have rented a really nice place for less money. So $750,000 lost over the course of the years that I owned my house. Now I sold my house March 4th, 2014. So we have March 4th, which is 2 plus 2. Stephen Hawking passed away March 14th, 2018. I'm going to show you another math equation within that math equation. So all of these numbers will add up. On March 1st, 2005, right after I bought my house, my first son, Ryan, his father passed away. So that was the same day in 2018 that Stephen Hawking wrote his final theory. So Stephen Hawking was diagnosed with ALS in 1963. I was born July 3rd, 1963. So on March 4th, 2018, I was working at 7111 Santa Monica Boulevard. Seven one one one. That's my birthday, July 3rd. 7111 is also 7 times 3 is 21. So we have, and it's also a bunch of other stuff in relation to space. So, and 111 is the apartment number that my son and I lived in before I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment. And was until I moved into my daughter's apartment. That was the 1-bedroom apartment that I moved into, and my son was supposed to live somewhere else, but he ended up moving in with me. So 7111 Santa Monica Boulevard. The name of the apartment building was, it still is, the Dillon. I was working there on March 4th, 2018. On March 4th, 2014, I sold my house. March 4th, 2019, Luke Perry passed away. Okay. So then Luke Perry passed away. If you know who Luke Perry is, the first role he ever got, his big role, was playing Dylan. His last role was playing a guy named Scott. I was working for a guy named Scott at the Dillon. So that tells a story of who Luke Perry was in my past life, my son's past life. It tells us that he was a person that was in close proximity to our energy, a family member, a co-worker, past life. So, and then the math just keeps getting, it gets very intricate. So on Sunset Boulevard, here we have Sunset Boulevard. There was a bar called the Roxbury, which is now called the Pink Taco. So in my mind, I know the Roxbury, the facade is still there, but the building itself is now redecorated and called the Pink Taco. Across the street, they completely tore down a place that used to be called Dublin's. And I don't know what it's called now, but it's there, and it looks kind of like a modern Shell station. So there was a billboard on each side of the street. Now, in front of the Roxbury, there was a billboard, and it was the cast of 90210 without Luke Perry. Now, on the far left of that billboard was Gabrielle Contreras. Gabrielle used to have a talk show called The Gabrielle Show. And it was on in the 90s. It was taken off the air in 1995. I was a guest on the last episode of that show. The show was titled Do Blondes Have More Fun? It was canceled after I was on. Across the street was a sign that says Luke Perry is Scott. Okay. I used to go to Dublin's all the time. That was the place I went to go dancing. I went there all the time. The bouncers knew me and they called me Lucky because I used to always wear a baseball cap that said Lucky. Now, when they took down, I predicted, I did a live video on Facebook. It's there somewhere in my hours and hours and hours of predictions. When they took this billboard down, I said someone was going to leave at the Pink Taco. Now, when someone's passing, I call it leaving because we're not dying, we're taking new form. And what happens are the people that you leave behind are the people that are mourning you, that are sad. But if they understood that sometimes you're being born into a better experience for yourself and maybe for them as well, it creates a shift in energy. And that's what I'm really good at, figuring out where people are. So, and it's a lot of math, but I don't have to sit there and guess at the equations. I just look and see if it aligns. If it doesn't, I try to figure out who the person was. And the only way to figure out who the person is to actually study the person themselves. You study where they went to school, how old they were when they got married, the name of their spouse, the name of their spouse's family. You have to figure all of this stuff out because these are all particles. And in order to understand a universal equation, you really have to understand how everything works. So, and then it goes down to, like, I started studying last night, trying to find the proper way to go even more into detail. When I started, you have 22 chromosomes, and then you have the X and the Y. Now, that gets very detailed. That gets very detailed. So you have 22 chromosomes. So we have 22 keeps coming up. So I predicted that when this sign came down, someone from the used to be Roxbury and the Pink Taco would leave. They took the sign down right after the billboard came down. Now, see, the thing with this is documented. There's like a report somewhere in Los Angeles of when that sign was removed and what day, what time, workers that showed up. And that in itself is part of the equation. And that would predict other things that are going to happen in that guy's life, in the business, and in the universe. And Sunset Boulevard, every single thing aligns everything. Everything. All of it is matter. All of it is intention and hypocrisy of intention that creates reality. So what happened was this guy that owned this establishment passed away. He also owned the Viper Room. Now, my son was Princess Diana in his most recent past life that was documented in history. Now, people would say, why would Albert Einstein be Princess Diana? Well, that's not complicated. It depends on who Albert Einstein was before he was Albert Einstein. But the easiest way to do it is to say Albert Einstein had to experience what it was like to be a woman that was adored, because Albert Einstein was adored, who experienced what it was like to be adored and cheated on by their spouse. Now, Albert Einstein cheated on his wife and he married his cousin. He promised his wife his Nobel Prize money if she divorced him. He also had a child that he never met, which meant at some point Einstein would not know who his father was, and just like his child did, and he would experience these realities, just like Princess Diana. Princess Diana, when she was pregnant with William, she threw herself down the stairs. When I gave birth to my son, I hemorrhaged going up the stairs. Everything would be, but from a different perspective. That's energy shifting in each reality. So we have Luke Perry, and on August 21st, 2018, my son overdosed and was in a coma. Coma is also a word used to describe parts of space. So, what my son experienced was something that the universe was also experiencing. The universe experiences what we experience. Now, there are different levels of experience. Albert Einstein was writing a theory of relativity, so he was greatly impacting the numbers of the universe. And what happens is when you start shifting in tension, and a lot of people are saying, "Yay, you figured out the universe." It was Einstein's theory of relativity. For me, it's not my theory, it's already out there. The universe already has a language. I'm just trying to understand the theory of reality. Now, the theory is reality. I'm trying to understand reality. I'm not trying to change reality. I'm not trying to interfere, but yet I have my moments where I interfere in it. It's sometimes it's intentional and sometimes it's not. And when it's intentional, I feel it. I know it. There are shifts in my energy immediately. Immediately. So my son was in a coma on August 21st, 2018. August 21st is my mother's birthday. I was Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was born 6/1, 1926. Marilyn Monroe passed away 8/4, 1962. The two numbers are reversed. So my son had also tattooed anarchy over the dice on his face. So that tells me, turn the numbers around, Tanya. Albert Einstein wanted to realize this theory. Now, Albert Einstein had to experience me as a mother because I was a mom who was having an extramarital affair, who ended up with someone who was well off, and I ended up paying debts that Marilyn Monroe owed, which meant my ex had something to do with show business because my house, Marilyn Monroe was being sued when she passed away, and she was being sued by the studio that she was with, and they were suing her for $750,000. That's how much I lost on the sale of my home. So whatever you owe, you pay back, just like Donald Trump. Donald Trump was Nikolai Tesla. So that is why you have Tesla's current owner being the wealthiest man in the world, while Donald Trump is facing the hardest time of his life. Now, what happens is if Donald Trump is impeached, there's hypocrisy there because everybody's wanting a Tesla. Tesla is doing great. But Donald Trump was Tesla in his past life. Now, I didn't vote for Donald Trump and I don't want a Tesla. So these things don't matter to me personally. I'm not going to judge anybody. I'm just going to say what you do becomes your reality. Now, Tesla disrupted the energy within the universe, saying, I'm going to take energy that doesn't belong to me. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not experiencing you. And that's Einstein's theory, right? Energy goes back. Energy begins as energy, manifests into matter, then goes back to energy. So if Tesla is stealing all of this energy to create a profit for himself, he would be bankrupting some kind of energy that he was paying back for something. Now, a lot of people don't think of animals as equals to humans. I'm going to let you know, animals, some of the animals you have in your house were your brothers and sisters that passed away. Some of them could have been someone from your past life. We take turns. You've been a dog, you've been a cow, you've been a cat. If you've eaten a cow, you're going to be a cow that's eaten. If you've shot a deer, you're going to be a deer that's shot. It could be your wife calling you dear and she could shoot you. It could be anything. But the words will come back and the intention will be part of your reality. So we have Marilyn. Her body was found August 5th. And Marilyn Monroe had 2 pinky toes on her left foot, and she had one of the toes surgically removed. When I gave birth to my daughter in 1992, I gave birth to my daughter on August 5th, the same day Marilyn was found. And Dr. Toe was my OBGYN. These things are all documented. This is not something I can make up. All of this stuff is documented. So everything is a pattern. So then we have binary, we have all of these different things that I don't understand in great depth, but I understand the universe very well. So I'm learning physics to try to figure out how to explain it in a way that a physicist would understand. So we have Luke Perry. Let's go back to Luke Perry. So we have Sunset Boulevard. Now, the guy that passed away, he also owned the Viper Room. Now, I paint things before they happen. I paint all kinds of things before they happen. And I align things. I have furniture. It's like some people could call it witchcraft, but it's not witchcraft. It's what you do. It's what I do. We all do it. Every scientist that speaks, the second they speak it, it becomes reality. It may not stay around, but if their intention is to publish something and it's inconclusive, and I write them, which I've written plenty of scientists, and I write them and I say, hey, I have this equation I'd like you to look over. And if they're like Stephen Hawking and they write their final theory, he passed away. Now, I was going to tell you, okay, Paris Jackson, Michael Jackson's daughter, was Dodi Fayed. And Dodi Fayed passed away from the same accident as Princess Diana, but at a different time. They didn't die at the same time. So my son was in a coma, and my son was friends with Paris Jackson. And Paris gave Noah his last tattoo, and it said, rest in peace. And it was on his arm. Now, Paris had written about Noah on her social media and her friend Sophie. Noah passed away with his friend Sophie. They were all friends. So Sophie was 20 years old when she passed away. Sophie is also the name of a toy giraffe that was created in Paris in 1961, the same year Princess Diana was born. See, it gets very detailed. It'll be everywhere. So Sophie was the Saint Sophie of feasts. So we have this toy giraffe, and then it goes to Lacoste. And then I think of a Lacoste, and I think of Izod, and I think of tennis. So all of these things, right? Everything I can associate it with, then I would see these people, celebrities, showing up in the news. Now, my son designed clothing, and my son designed some pants, and he put them on this website called Grailed. And a guy bought them named Black Bear. Bear also has to do with some other things. Okay, so Black Bear. And Black Bear wore these pants on his album cover. And on this album cover was this guy with pink hair on Sunset Boulevard and in Times Square. E equals MC square. Okay, so this equation would show up as my son's current reality, which I know where my son is now, and he lives in New York. And I don't know his parents, but I know who they are because they're famous. And but that's the thing. If you're born into wealth, you will find poverty. But if you're born and you're not wealthy, you will find this path that you will be amongst your peers eventually. So Princess Diana was a kid, right? She was very young when she met Prince Charles. Diana's birthday was July 1st. Prince Charles was crowned and became formally a prince also on July 1st, 8 years before Diana was born. So that's August. Marilyn Monroe's birthday, June 1st, and Diana's was June 1st. Now, Princess Diana had said publicly that she felt really connected to Marilyn Monroe. And Elton John wrote Candle in the Wind from Marilyn and then dedicated it again to Princess Diana. So this is all prophecy. This is all telling you what's happening. So Marilyn Monroe, because I know my whole life story, it's easy for me to look at Marilyn Monroe and go, oh, now that makes sense. Now, my son, I was working at the Dillon. Stephen Hawking's passing. So I was working there on March 14th, 2018. I looked out the window and I saw 4 Mini Coopers. Sheldon Cooper, remember Big Bang Theory? Anyway, I saw 4 Mini Coopers and I also had a Mini Cooper. So that made 5. And there was a moving truck, and the moving truck said Prodigy. Prodigy Moving. Now, if they go back in their books and they went to that date, they would find that moving truck was parked right there. Everything can be documented. So, and that's how the universe does it, because they know scientists want documentation. But the thing is I can't make this stuff up. How would I even know to look for this stuff? So here I am working at the Dillon. There's Mini Cooper, Mini Cooper, Mini Cooper, Mini Cooper, and my Mini Cooper. Now, my Mini Cooper was to my right, so it's hard to tell this picture's backwards. So my Mini Cooper was, let's do this. My Mini Cooper was over here to my right. So we'll do this again. And there's the building, and there's the driveway coming from the building, and then there's an alley between the building and the parking space. Now, this is McDonald's, and I'm parked behind a McDonald's on the street. Marilyn Monroe's handprints are in front of McDonald's on Hollywood Boulevard. So, and the street that I was on, Santa Monica Boulevard, also the ramen place that my son and I always went to is called Tatsu, and it is 7111 Melrose. So all of these things create this math equation everywhere we were. So every time something happens, if someone gets shot, they were supposed to get shot based on what they got away with in their past life. Like, say someone kills somebody and then kills themselves. You don't get to do that. You don't get to just do that. That's not how reality works. So then you kill someone and then you die. You're born to be killed at the same age, at the same time, all of the same circumstances, only you're the one being killed this time. And someone else will get punished for it because you should have gotten punished, but you didn't get punished. You got to live your life. And this is how all of this stuff turns out. Whatever you judge becomes your reality. Marilyn Monroe didn't want to grow old. She didn't want her skin to no longer be flawless. She wanted, that's what she had going for her. So me, I would get acne at like 16. I would want to grow old so my face would clear up. I would want to grow old so I didn't have to deal with my childhood. It wasn't a horrible childhood. It just wasn't my dream childhood. And so, but Marilyn Monroe didn't have a dream childhood either. But whatever I asked for, Marilyn Monroe wanted to know herself. And Albert Einstein wanted to understand God. He wanted to communicate with God. I communicate with, I think it's God. It's the entire universe. Like, I can know what someone is thinking without them even saying a word. If someone says, "Oh my gosh, this happened to me today," I'm like, well, this, and this had to happen in your life in order for that to happen. And they're like, you're always spot on. How do you know this? I'm like, because I just know how the universe communicates when I've already lived it. It's like my life is a blueprint, so to speak. Like, it tells the laws of the universe. And so I know that when something bad happens in my life, I go back into my childhood, I go back into my life. I researched Marilyn Monroe and I'm like, there it is. That's why this is happening. That would be the effect of that cause. Then it all starts making sense. If you have an abortion, that child is born to someone else. There are people that I can tell you who they are. Billie Eilish, she was Martin Luther King. She even sings about it in her song. She probably has no clue that that's what she's singing about, but she was Martin Luther King. Now, I know that either my son or myself, I haven't done all of the lifetimes in between, so I don't know, but our math is so close that it is, I have to know who we were in every single lifetime. One of us was Leonardo da Vinci. Now, the thing with Leonardo da Vinci, it's more likely to have been me because Leonardo da Vinci painted a girl in the nude. She was holding a scarf. That was Marilyn Monroe's first photo, and she got paid $50 for it. And then she was in Playboy, and she was the first Playboy centerfold. Now, I used to go, I was involved with this guy just casually, and his name is Michael Bernard. Michael Bernard did the Victoria's Secret commercials. He's a cinematographer. And then I hired him to take photos of my friend Sharon when she was pregnant. And it was the first time he was being paid to take photos. And I paid him $500, which means the likelihood of him having been there. Now, maybe he was someone that I painted that I didn't pay, or he could have been the girl. And now he's a boy that's like really good at his job. But anyway, he ended up doing Playboy centerfolds. He ended up working for Playboy. So we're all aligned with the people that we leave behind. Now, there is Marilyn Monroe posed her last photo shoot was in Vogue magazine, and the designer was Christian Dior. My son Ryan, now this was before I even knew I was Marilyn Monroe. This was before I even understood how the universe worked. I just knew that I knew things that other people didn't know, but I just thought like I was a psychic. I didn't know what the heck I knew. I just knew stuff. So it's like when but my son Ryan, when he was born, the first outfit that I ever bought him was a Dior outfit. Now, my grandparents got married on July 3rd. I was born on July 3rd. My grandparents got married. My grandmother was 16. Marilyn Monroe was also 16 when she got married. You turn 16 around at 61. That's the year Princess Diana was born. All of the math has to be conclusive, forward and backward. That's what a lot of physicists might not understand. If you have cause and effect, it has to be the same going forward and backward. The math has to add up going forward and backward. And the math has to tell the story with subtraction, multiplication, and division. That is where it can get complex. That's called duality. That's where it's happening everywhere. Like Princess Diana died when she was 36. Marilyn Monroe died when she was 36. Princess Diana left behind two sons. This is duality. She left two sons behind, Prince Charles and Prince William, Prince Harry and Prince William, but Harry's name is actually Henry. So my son's last name is Harris, Noah Harris. Noah's, in biblical terms, the last good man. Harris, Archie Harrison. And then it starts telling you Harry son or Harris O-N. And O going backwards are the first letters of Noah's name. So then it would tell the story. And then Albert Einstein, all these people would be in there. But Marilyn Monroe had to relate. And Prince Harry's wife, Meghan, gave birth at 36. Prince Harry was 36 when Noah died. All of the math would add up. There's no, oh, well, it's a little off. It will never be a little off. That's what's happening in physics. They're like, if they can't explain something, they still publish it. Don't publish it unless you can explain it. Because what happens is when people like me come along and then we explain something you can't explain, and you exclude our work from the equation, the universe will shut everything down. And that's what happened. I wrote Stephen Hawking in March. And then what happened the next year? Everything started shutting down after Luke Perry passed away. So everything is a cause and effect. And it usually, I found that when it's something like I painted a rhinoceros in a suit, and he's wearing trousers and he's wearing an orange suit, and he's talking to a lamb wearing a crown, and then there's a big bird behind him. Now, then I was researching and I saw, everything. I always find what I need. I always find what I need. Um, so I know who the bird is, but I won't say. But this rhino. So I was on someone's podcast. I used to do perform on stage and do predictions, and people hired me for private parties to be a psychic. Um, my psychic abilities are very. I, I use logic. I just tell people how to become better versions of themselves. I don't want to do magic tricks and go, oh, you're going to find love. I don't want to say that stuff. That's not who I am. That's lying. It's lying. And it's actually telling people to commit adultery, and it's telling people to go against their intention. So I don't do that. But this moving here anyway. So I looked out the window, and this is when Stephen Hawking passed. And I have the video and the timestamp on the video on my Facebook. So you have these Mini Coopers, and here I am. Well, no, here I am over here looking out the window. This this moving truck was over here. Dang it. So anyway, I did it backwards because I'm trying to do from the right side. Okay. So this is my Mini Cooper. Scratch that. This is the moving truck. So this is moving truck, says Prodigy. It had a ramp coming out of the back. Between my Mini Cooper and this Mini Cooper, there was a ramp coming out this way. Now, this one's leaving. So this person was moving. When this car left its parking space, Stephen Hawking passed away. So that's the equation right there. So like tic-tac-toe, like this, I was the only one left. But because my son was Albert Einstein, I predicted the person that was in my way of concluding this theory was leaving. My son passed away in September. So this gives you an idea of how powerful our words are. And everything you say is predicting everything in your life. So if you tell someone you hate them, that's you being aware that someone you care about is being told they're hated. So these things hold a great power. When people riot, what they don't understand, there's so much math. I just don't want to do all of this right now. But what I want to tell you, I'm going to show you. Okay, I was working at 7111 Santa Monica Boulevard. That's my birthday. So my birthday's July 3rd. My son passed away on 63 Lime Street. I was born in 1963. I have this painting, and it had my birthday on it a couple of times. And I had also painted a helicopter with 8 flowers coming out of it. And the video is on my Facebook. I don't know exactly where it is. There's so many. Somebody would have to go through all of it. I don't really care to do it. It's not that pressing a need for me right now. But the night I put that painting in storage, and I was talking about Kobe Bryant, when I painted on that painting, that night it went into storage was the day Kobe Bryant passed away. Now, Kobe Bryant is related in my past life. So if Marilyn Monroe has an abortion or a miscarriage, that child is born anyway. So Marilyn Monroe had an affair um, with JFK and his brother. Now, that would mean in my life, and those brothers lived in a compound. So that means compound would come up in my life twice. I also dated two brothers from a wealthy political family who live in a compound. Now, then I was put on this medication when this all started happening in my life. And in 2008, the number 28, so which is also the number 10, which is also the number 6, which is also the number 16, which is also the number 7. All of these numbers would be relevant. Marilyn Monroe got married when she was 16. All of these numbers would just be part of the equation. So I was having these visions. Like I would see stuff before it happened. Now, this one vision I had, it's pretty funny. I mean, it's not funny, but it is funny. Like Megan Fox was L. Ron Hubbard. Now, at the time, it was 2008. I think that's right when President Obama was going into office, and it was his inauguration. And I had this friend at the time who she was a Scientologist, and she recruits people for Scientology at the Celebrity Center, and Tom Cruise had recruited her. And she's a famous person. Her husband was famous, and their friends are famous. I'm not famous. But this, I'll show you how the law, people call it the law of attraction. Now, there was this movie that I loved. I laughed so hard. I laughed when I saw this movie. And it was I'm Gonna Get You, or what is the I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker? And something. It was Keenan Ivory Wayans. And something sucker. Um, but there's this girl hopping, like, and that I was born with a club foot. Marilyn Monroe did a movie. I lived on a tropical island. Marilyn Monroe did a movie, her last movie, and she was on a tropical island, and she left her husband and two children behind, and she was in a shoe store and she was trying on shoes. And she said, um, she was trying on the left shoe and she goes, I thought my foot was much smaller. And so then I would end up with a club foot and I would have 7 casts. Marilyn Monroe, when you're in a movie, you're cast. She was in a movie called 7-Year Itch. I don't know if you've ever had stitches or casts, but they itch. And so for the first 7 years of my life, I was in different casts, just like an actress is cast in movies. Every word will mean something different in each lifetime. So what happens is Marilyn Monroe's making this movie, right? And she's talking about, oh, my foot was smaller, blah, blah, blah. So that means if she's a size 7 and there's a woman out there that's size 9 and Marilyn's saying, like, oh my God, my foot should be smaller than this, that's a judgment. That's in the Bible. It says, judge and you'll be judged. In physics, it's cause and effect. So it's a judgment. So every actor that plays a serial killer or a horrible, like awful experience in reality, their next life, they will come back and they will be documented publicly, but they'll be the killer, the actual killer. They'll be the bad person. You don't get to be paid to pretend and be respected while someone else is living in shame and not paid. So physics is very exact. There is no getting away with anything. Nothing, zero, zilch, nada. So if you start thinking about an animal as a human, if you start thinking about a tree as God's physiology, then you'll understand. If you cut down a tree, you're going to get injured, and you're going to have a tree represents air, oxygen. So what we have now, remember in the 80s there was this song, I'll stop the world and melt with you. Okay, I've seen some changes and it's getting better all the time. There's nothing you and I won't do. I'll stop the world and melt with you. Melting. Right now what we're doing is melting. Do you know what melting is? Melting is the process of making a surgical mask. So if you're walking around with a surgical mask on, you're experiencing the process that was called melting. And so what happens is, why would the universe stop? Why would it stop? I'll tell you one of the reasons. First, they legalized marijuana. Marijuana was a big one because many people had spent long years in prison for using marijuana. Once they legalized marijuana, the universe has to even things out. They're like, all these people lost time with their family. They were incarcerated, they were in jail. And now everybody is going around smoking pot on the sidewalk, everything else. I personally can't stand the smell of marijuana. Can't stand it. I got high for the first time. I don't remember my exact age. I think I was uh, 34. I think I was 34 years old when I got stoned for the first time. And I only did it that one time at a wedding, and I was with my boyfriend, and he was just turning 21 years old. He was young, and he was a college wrestler, and I just thought he was the cutest thing. Big, huge mistake for me. So then the universe, I got pregnant with my son. Well, I was 35 because I got pregnant with my son. Yeah, right after 34, 35. And then I got pregnant with my son. And the universe aligned it based on my intention. I had tried drugs. I tried drugs for my first time at that age. Now, I had taken Tylenol once in a while. I don't even know that I did very much. But what happens is, what you put into your body, you're born to experience what occurs when they're compounding those ingredients for. I was born, I had 7 operations. So if I had surgery for the first 7 years of my life, then that tells you that I was aligned to be sedated. And then that takes me to Michael Jackson real quick. Let me take you to Michael. Michael Jackson was the inventor of Dr. Pepper in his past life. And that doctor was from Waco, Texas. So Waco and Wacko, very close. So then you see the C. Then you start seeing where E equals MC squared will keep showing up. Now, what does Dr. Pepper do to you? It sedates you. What is also the number one cause of death in the world? Sugar. Sugar is related to more death than anything else. Sugar. Sugar, heart disease, diabetes, emotional disorders, all kinds of things. But sugar is the number one contributing factor to death. So Michael Jackson, what happens with caffeine? Caffeine gets you you're like wired. You're like, woo! So Michael Jackson would end up having to sedate himself to sleep because of all of the stuff other people were experiencing. This is when particles just kind of, and that's intention, creates your reality. So if you're an inventor, your next life not going to be so pleasant. Bill Gates not going to like his next life. That guy's going to be dealing with mental illness. That guy's going to be dealing with paranoia. That guy's going to be dealing with all kinds of not pleasant stuff. If you have $1 billion, if you're a billionaire, you're going to be broke next lifetime. You will end up, you'll either be born into wealth or you will be part of wealth. It depends on your intention. You have, if you hoard your money and then you say, I'm going to leave it all when I die, the universe will make you die early in your next life when you're born into your money, and then you'll come back and you'll be poor. So these things create reality. If you post a lot of stuff on your social media about you within people that are dealing with scarcity, say you're like doing a water project somewhere, you're like, check me out, I'm doing water for everybody, I'm so great, I'm abundant in water, and then you show your lavish home, and then you've got pictures of yourself with these children that are struggling and you leave them behind. You will have scarcity of water yourself. You'll be dehydrated, or you'll have some kind of autoimmune issue. This is where disease comes from. Disease comes from our intention. When you think you're a really good person, you're usually not a really good person. You want to be a good person. You actually aren't always happy. But you're not sad. And that's where you get to be honest with yourself. Your intention creates your reality. Say a man buys his wife flowers. He's like, oh, I cheated on my wife. I'm going to buy her flowers. Look at me. I'm so nice. Now, firstly, he's never thought about what the flower's experiencing, or what the person that is harvesting the flower, or the bee, all of these things. We don't really think about the water. You have a lot of people that are musicians. Farm aid, conserve your water, blah, blah, blah. Do you know how much electricity they use for those concerts? Those farmers could, for all of these concerts that all of these do-gooders do, they could be contributing that money to the farmers, but see, they want more money. So next lifetime, they'll be the farmer, and then someone will advocate for them on their behalf. Or they might just be picking fruits, vegetables, or whatever on the farm. All of it is accounted for. And so, knowing all of these things, I can predict outcomes in finances, banking. I predicted all of this. I didn't predict it in detail, but I did say the government was going to shut down. The poor people were going to feel wealthier than they'd ever felt. No one was going to have to pay rent. It's a process to get there, but look at it. It's Our president isn't even going to be our president. And all of this stuff I already know. How do I know? Based on the life he's already had, I know he's there to be made an example of. Kamala Harris is there to be made an example of. How do I know this? Because I know who she was in her past life. And she was a slave owner. And that's harsh. That's what she was. So she's there to experience her reality. So anyway, I painted this rhinoceros. So see, I don't pity any of us. I don't pity myself. It destroys me that I don't get to be with my son. It destroys me. Like, I'll have moments where I just cry. And then I think, no, my son was Albert Einstein. My son was Princess Diana. My son's soul, and my son was my son, and I know him very well. He wouldn't want me to quit doing what I'm doing. He wouldn't want me to be sad, but he would want to know that I care. And so my hope is to conclude Albert Einstein's theory in a way that humbles all other scientists because they weren't very kind to him. And thus far, they haven't been kind to me. Thomas Hertog, who worked on Stephen Hawking's final theory with him, when I wrote Thomas Hertog, I wrote him and I wrote him and I kept giving him notes. And he's probably thinking, what the fuck is this lady talking about? And I'm like, yeah, well, you don't understand science. All academic is gonna stop. And he probably, and then one day he picked up the phone and he was trembling when he picked up the phone. And then he hung up on me. And then I called back and then he hung up again. So that's the number two. See, now the thing is he's a brilliant scientist. He understands enough, but it's also probably very scary for him because he knows he overstepped his boundaries when he said he could use this to control the universe. I'm like, I know for a fact I don't like to be controlled. So if I'm only a teeny, teeny, teeny speck of God's intention, then I know God does not like to be controlled. That's what we have natural disasters. Natural disasters are the way God shows us we are not in control. We're not the ones in charge. We are experiencing one another's energy. So when I see people out there picketing and rioting and doing all of these things, I'm like, firstly, who gives you permission? Somebody spent hours for little pay building that building. A tree had to be killed. Parts, elements of the universe were extracted to build that building. And you got kids going around writing bullshit stuff on it. I'm like, oh, that's not going to go well. And you've got people destroying other people's property. And I'm like, that's not going to go well. And then all of a sudden, the universe says, hey, I got this. All of a sudden, thunder and earthquakes and bombings and shootings. The universe takes all of our negative energy from our lives and it manifests in different areas of reality. So if you get mad at someone that goes on a shooting rampage, you're actually judging someone close to you because the universe always allows you to feel what you've taken part of. That person that could have done the mass shooting could have been a child that you aborted 3 lifetimes ago. And you have no idea that person that just shot them is your new grandchild. And then all of a sudden you're like, all the judgment you put against that person manifests in this person. That's why in the Bible it says, keep your enemies close. That's what it means. Like my ex, I lost a child with him, and his spouse said, congratulations on the death of your baby. I was like, that's pretty messed up. But that had to be something from past life. So now that I understand that, but what she doesn't realize is the baby she gave birth to was the baby that I lost. She had a baby right after. And it was the baby I had first. So what she did was she cursed her own child. And she had no idea. And then she quoted to me, keep your enemies close. I'm like, oh. And when I lived in Corona in 2015 with my son Noah. And my ex's girlfriend sent me an email. And in that email, she sent it to me on Christmas Day. And it said I was a virus. So when I lived in Corona, I got called a virus in 2015. So that tells me something. And the same girl said, I wouldn't care if you ran up and down Sunset Boulevard stabbing yourself in the nude. That was pretty harsh. I'm like, why am I hearing all of this awful stuff? Well, it turns out she was an abortion that I had in my past life. So that's why I was hearing it. The babies, the voice of the child got the opportunity to tell me how they felt about what I did. That's why we hear the negative things. That's why we experience the darkness. Now, the color of our skin has nothing to do with anything other than our intention. Now, I've been Black in my past life, and I was an actual slave in a past life. And so I understand things, but if I speak to my Black friends, they're like, "You don't know what it's like." I'm like, "Well, I know that you were white in your past life, and I know that you weren't a nice person, so you must have been a bigot or something, and that is why you had to experience what you're experiencing." Because my Black friends are all really successful. They're like some of the most famous people and some of the most educated people, but they still feel like they're um, competing. I'm like, I'm not competing with you. I wish I was as smart as you, or I wish I was as talented as you. But the reality is, I'm a different kind of smart. I'm not the kind of smart that on a resume someone's going to hire me, but I do get hired if someone meets me. But if they just look at my credentials and they look at my age, most people aren't going to hire me. And some people, after they talk to me, they're like, "Oh, you're overqualified." And I'm like, "But I'm really not. I haven't had that many like jobs." And so it comes down to intention. And then that tells me I'm supposed to do what I'm doing, because when I was Marilyn Monroe, I was only qualified to do that job or work in a parachute factory, which my first boyfriend was a skydiver. And he's, I used to sit there with him and his best friend at the drop zone as they folded their parachutes, and then they would go up in the plane, and I would just sit there all day watching them skydive. And if you've ever been skydiving, um, it's not very much fun to just sit there. But when I was folding parachutes, that's all I did. I just sat there. So Marilyn Monroe married a guy named Doherty when she was 16. And when I was 18, I had this boyfriend named Rick McGivern, and he flew F4s, Tom Cruise pretending to fly F4s in Top Gun. And Tom Skerritt was in Top Gun, and I was an extra in a movie with Tom Skerritt. And it was called Big Man on Campus. And it was called Hunchback of UCLA, and then it was changed to Big Man on Campus. And the director of that movie ended up being one of the parents at my daughter's school, which was Waldorf. And so all of these things are aligned. And then the parents, my daughter's friend in first grade, there's my dog going through a cat can. But my dog was Michael Jackson. That part cracks me up. And there are all kinds of connections for that. But everybody that I've done the math on, it's conclusive. I mean, Kanye West was Elvis Presley's mother. That's why he keeps thinking he was the king. He keeps thinking he was Jesus. That's why he keeps saying he was the king. Um, my daughter went to the same boarding school as Lisa Marie Presley, and we would all be aligned. This is called alignment. Um, when every when your equation is just moving, and I call it alignment. It's aligning you for the next chapter of your life. Now, there are a lot of movies out. One that cracks me up, it's called something Intelligence. I can't remember. It's with Melissa McCarthy. And the movie, when this happened to me in 2008, I was trying to get a student loan, and I was talking on the phone to someone from Bank of America. Now I realize it was way different than I thought, but, I'm sitting there and the guy sounded like Perez Hilton, and I kept, like, reading Perez Hilton stuff. My daughter told me to, like, "Oh, check out this guy, Perez Hilton," and I started, like, not becoming obsessed, but I was just started reading because I was looking for messages, so to speak. And so I thought I was unstable of mind. I didn't know what was happening, but I saw pure energy. It was blue. It was like this color. And it was from my friend. I first went to Kinko's. I was at Kinko's and it was before MySpace was sold. And this energy told me to and it doesn't speak to me. It shows me. It's like I don't even know how it communicates with me. It's like it lives in me and then I know stuff and I just have this infinite wisdom and I don't understand where it's coming from. So there I am and I look at my friend and I'm like I'm going crazy. But something told me to go to Kinko's and upload all of my blogs. This is how dumb I am. I didn't understand. But what happens in science, these scientists do these experiments. And if they think they know something, they're not going to tell you they know it's you. So whomever it was already knew it was me. And so that's why he died. Stephen Hawking lived long enough to find me, but not long enough to be the one that wrote this theory. And currently, he's my daughter's dog, and his name is Dude. And he's very cute and he's very lovable. And Stephen Hawking was very drawn to Marilyn Monroe also, and he didn't know why. He said he wanted to put a picture of her in his book. Now, the thing is Marilyn Monroe used to be Isaac Newton. That's why Stephen Hawking was so drawn to Marilyn Monroe. He had no idea that Marilyn Monroe used to be Isaac Newton. Now, why would Isaac Newton be Marilyn Monroe? The thing is Marilyn Monroe epitomized sexuality and she liked really intelligent people, men preferably. And what happens is if you're a man and you're surrounding yourself with intelligent men and you're talking about sexualizing women and demeaning women to the point where they're only sexual objects, you will be born to experience being the most sexualized woman in the world. And so I, as Isaac Newton, was known as one of the smartest people in the world. So then I would become the sexiest person in the world. No idea why. And now I'm just kind of like, I'm 57 and I'm not like, I'm okay with being old. I know that when I pass, I'm going to come right back. I'm going to be a baby all over again. There are going to be times when I'm an animal. There are going to be times when I don't like being an animal. There are going to be times when I don't like being a human. No matter what I come back as, no matter what I experience, I know that I deserve every single thing I experience. All of it. Because everything had to experience, everything in my life is going to experience me from a different perspective. So, however I make people feel in this life, or how I make my pets feel in this life, they will make me feel that way in my next life. That's reality. That's fact. Now, my grandmother, now these are the other parts of the equation. My grandmother is now my granddaughter, and my grandmother was also Amy Winehouse. And because my grandmother had married my grandfather also when she was 16, and married my grandfather's name was Cole. And what was Marilyn known for? Diamonds are a girl's best friend. What does coal and diamond have to do with anything? Mining. So then you start putting all of these things, and then you start looking at the elements, and then you start looking at each person. Now, I'm going to try to explain purpose in the best way I know how without trivializing anything. When someone is a celebrity, what they are is easy access to ego. And so ego creates all of this chaos in the world. Everybody wants to be more important than the universe. Everyone wants to be more important than God. You'll be seeing people going to church. I love God. God's amazing. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, I partied last night, but I'm going to ask God to forgive me for my sins. Firstly, why would you want to see someone starved, crucified, and then ask them, hey, do you mind like hooking me up with some like get me out of sin free cards? I'll take some of those. And then donate $2 to someone that's dying of starvation because you need to go buy another whatever. That's ridiculous. Can you imagine what God's thinking? God's just like, make it stop. Make it stop. Got a bunch of scientists going around. Nobody wants to help anybody. Everybody wants to be the one person. I'm sitting here writing so many scientists, like you have no idea, going, hey, here's not one person has written me back except for this one guy, two guys. One guy wrote me back, and that has to be because of Isaac Newton and Marilyn Monroe and my bratty attitude before. So what I'm doing now is just listening to people that aren't scientists. They're teaching me more than the scientists. The scientists are all wrong anyway. I'm like watching a thing on Einstein and I'm listening to these scientists talk about Einstein and they're like, cause and effect, theory of relativity. I'm like, that looks like a very expensive suit. And you're Asian. I'm just saying, if you grow up in a certain demographic and you understand fundamentally the flaws within the system, you understand that people are working for very little wages, making that suit. Right there, you've excluded yourself from the equation. Like literally. And then I was watching this movie with Johnny Depp. It's called The Professor. And he makes this girl leave because she has sweatpants on. And I'm like, so you make this girl leave the classroom because she has sweatpants on. Johnny Depp's going to come back in his next lifetime. He's going to be a girl. I'm like, I would totally wear sweatpants to class. Why? Firstly, because they're comfortable. Secondly, because my objectivity is to learn, not to be in some kind of competition with people sitting next to me. If my professor said that to me, I would have said, hasta la vista, see you later. I research in my pajamas. I study wherever I go. I experience things everywhere. I was at Goodwill the day Kate Spade passed away. And I was walking by this bin of clothing. And I like to go thrift shopping. And my son taught that to me. And my son designed clothing. He repurposed clothing. And and at first I didn't want to go, but then I went and I love it. I love going thrifting for clothing and bedding. I don't care what it is. I love it now. But and I'm an artist, but I'm not a, like, I don't even know. Like, I'm not a normal artist this time. All of my art proves stuff, even my son's art. My son painted his path before it even happened. So as I learned, and my this dollhouse that I have on my Instagram, it's Theory of T personal page. The letter T, TheoryOFTpersonalpage. Um, it's the whole thing spelled out. I have all of these paintings and things that I do before they happen, and I I just paint stuff before it happens, and I guess I've always done it, and I just didn't realize it, just like everyone does it, and they don't realize it. Now, when my son woke up from his coma in 2018, um, it was when Banksy shred his Girl with the Red Heart balloon painting. Now, Banksy is aligned with this reality, and then we have um, Brooks Bank, who is Princess Eugenie's spouse. And so his name has Bank in it, and then you have Banksy. And Banksy he's a prophet. He may or may not be aware of it. I'm not going to conclude that for him. Um, he may be aware of it, but not understand it. He might just think it's coincidence, or he might be delivering a message. But anyway, my son had this shirt on, and it's a popular brand. It's called Play. And it had a heart on it, and it had its eyes wide open. Now, he slept in that shirt the night before he woke up from his coma. And then Banksy shred his painting, and my son woke up from his coma. It was like magic. And my daughter has an anchor tattoo on her ankle, an anchor tattoo on her ankle. And Banksy then bought a rescue ship. Now that tells me something. And then Noah passed away. And so all of this tells me where I'll find my son and what will happen to my daughter and my granddaughter and myself throughout our path. I'm not trying to predict our future. I'm just trying to figure out how much life insurance I need, how long I'm going to have to pay for. I'm trying to figure these things out, right? Because also, I know that they said Albert Einstein was going to have to sell insurance at one point because he couldn't get a job. And right before my son passed, I got life insurance. It was effective June 22nd. At 6/22. My son passed away on 9/22. And then it was due again December 22nd. And my niece was born December 22nd. So Nice is also part of Europe. So anyway, like I said, Noah was Princess Diana, and Paris Jackson was Dodi Fayed. Then I went to Goodwill and I'm thrifting, okay, right? And I'm there and I see all these men's jeans. And then I think Norma Jean, right? So, but I wasn't thinking that at the time. But I see all these men's jeans, and I'm like walking by this bin, but the universe is literally go to this bin. And I'm like, and I'm talking to the universe. I'm like, I don't want to go to this bin. Like it's just a bunch of men's jeans. I don't want any of those jeans. And the universe is like, just do it. So I go and I start digging through these jeans, and I see this white t-shirt. It's like clean. It's no stains, no holes, no nothing. And I pick up this shirt, and it's a Kate Spade shirt. And in the back of it, there's a hole with a bow. It's a cutout of a hole, like a noose. And I hold it up and I'm like, "What's up, Kate Spade? Hey, Kate Spade. What's up, Kate Spade?" And then I got home and found out that she had taken her life um, by hanging herself. And I didn't feel so great about knowing that, but I felt confident about understanding. And that's a really complex place to be because then it makes me seem indifferent. And I'm not indifferent. I'm just really trying to understand what I know. So in 2008, I'm in Kinko's, right? And I don't know they're going to shut down MySpace. This is when all of this first started happening. It was also at the same time they built this big, huge telescope and this big, huge computer. And it happened the second they zoomed in on space. It's like they zoomed in on me and I was going overtime, man. It was like they were communicating directly to me. I knew stuff I couldn't even imagine. Like it was as if I was a computer and someone had programmed me with all of this information that was already out there that I wasn't aware of. So my first thing was I painted like this fox looking creature on my door and there were a bunch of animals around it and it was crying and then I'm like, "What is that? Like, what am I painting?" And then James Cameron's movie came out. I'm like, "Oh, it's like one of those people from the movie. That's so weird." And I painted it long before I even saw this thing. And then I had this vision go through my head. It was going like someone flipping, you know, when you flip the pages of a book and it tells the story really fast? It was like that, but it was Sanskrit, and it was just so fast, and it was all this stuff, and then I went and saw Transformers, and it happened to Shia LaBeouf in Transformers, that same thing, and I saw that, like, a year later. I was like, "Hey, that was what I saw in my dream," and then I started doing this stuff all the time, I would just see stuff. So I checked myself into the hospital because I was just like, "I don't there's gotta be something wrong with me." But I was in Kinko's and, I took down my blogs. I, like, printed out all my blogs. I still have them. And, then MySpace shut down right after. But the universe told me they're gonna want this. I thought I was supposed to take it down. What they were telling me is print it out because science will be able to use the dates and the words that I wrote. So I'm like, but I didn't realize that until this past couple of years. I didn't realize that in 2008. It was all new to me. I had no idea. It was like I was woken up and all the past knowledge just came coming back to me. So what I've learned is like whatever I experience as Isaac Newton, I had to pay for sins from before. Now, sin is also synergy, it's also synonym, it's also all of these different variations of what it means. That's particle. Every word means something, it's all telling you something. Just like this lifetime, I had a boyfriend named Joe who played softball, but his brother Pat Gomez played professional baseball, and his wife's name is Marilyn. See, that's documented. Marilyn was married to a guy named Joe, right? Who played ball. So my life would shift and I would see it from a different perspective. Everything in my, sorry, I'm looking at notes I have over here. So everything would be in alignment. Every number on my credit card, every phone number, all of them, my codes on the back of my credit cards, everything are the births and deaths and everything of me. Every number you have is related to your life. Like the day someone will die, the day someone will be born. If you kept every credit card and every time someone new was born in your family, you go, "Oh my God, their birth date's right there." That's not a coincidence. That's the universe telling you what's coming. If you lose your credit card, it's not a coincidence. It's not you lost it on purpose, and it's to make you pay for an energy. You'll need it, you won't have it. Everything is aligning. That's what particles are. They're all of this stuff moving. There are no accidents, there are no coincidences. It's all aligned. Everything in your life. If someone to that you were mean to on Friday was mean to somebody because of what you did to them on Friday, all of a sudden you'll feel that energy. You'll feel that negativity come back. You experience everything you put out there. So if you lie, cheat, or steal, people are they're lying to you, cheating from you, and stealing from you. Nobody gets away with anything. Nobody. So we have um, my life insurance policy. My son passed away at the 3 month mark. So then again, December 22nd. So March 22nd will be a important day. Now, Princess Eugenie is supposed to have her baby soon. So Queen Elizabeth was someone from my past life. I was actually a queen in a previous life, and I'm going to be a president in a future existence, presence, time. Let's just say time. So anyway, my son passed away on Lime Street. Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber has Lyme disease. There and in SRY. Sorry was on his album. So SRY is sorry also with only one vowel, that is Y. So then we have Morse theory, but all of the stuff is like Morse code, right? So here, okay. Sorry, I'm looking through my notes, trying to find something that would. I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of notes and okay, so even calico cats. You have 95% of calico cats are female. The patches of fur on a calico cat are orange and black, and the color depends on which X chromosome is inactive within each patch of color. So even a cat is telling you a story. A cat was a human. Like I had a cat named Gracie. Gracie was Princess Diana's mother in her past life. And so, and I don't know who my cat Jake was. I don't know who he was. I'm sure I will figure it out, but honestly, I won't know who Jake was until Jake passes away. So hopefully it's not for a long time. I'm in no hurry, Jake. I'm in no hurry. This is Jake. There's Jake. And Jake is a Maine Coon cat. And so, but I had taken these cats. They were feral cats, and they were in our backyard. And I took them from the mother, and the mother was a calico cat. And Zora was black and white, Gracie was gray and white, Lucky was black and white, and Tiger was an orange tabby cat. Now, I was allergic to cats, and my daughter wanted me to rescue these cats. And I was being a mom. I wasn't thinking about what I was doing to the mama cat. I wasn't thinking about anything except for reacting to a child wanting and pleading with me. Now, when I first found these cats, I was trying to find them homes. And that ended up being like Marilyn Monroe, right? Marilyn Monroe, they took her in, and then they're like, "Financially, it's not practical for us anymore, so get out, kid." You know, we're so they kicked Marilyn Monroe out, and she went back, and then she came back, and then she got married when she was 16, so she would have a stable environment and wouldn't have to go to a foster home or an orphanage. So in this lifetime, I would be born into a family where my mom was very strict with me and wanted to know, where I was, what I was doing. We weren't allowed to do certain things. It was just a totally different upbringing. But yet my mom was kind of like Marilyn Monroe in some ways. My mom was very much like Marilyn Monroe in some ways, um, but also not like Marilyn Monroe in some ways. So anyway, I was born on my grandparents' wedding anniversary, and my sister was born on July 17th. My ex was also born on July 17th. Now, I was talking one day, and my grandparents had a set of twins on July 17th, and both twins passed away. One passed away July 17th, the other passed away July 18th. The twin that was named Jean passed away July 17th. Now, Princess Diana was also the child that Jackie Kennedy gave birth to that died 2 days after birth. That's the number two again. Now, this baby, when the baby died, it was buried in Newport, Rhode Island. My son's nickname was Little Newport Pleasure. Now, everything you say is part of your past life. You're like, that's why people lie and stuff. You don't even know why they're lying. They don't even know why they're lying. Because Marilyn Monroe, if I told a lie, it's because Marilyn Monroe lied for a living. So if I was trying to keep living, I had to tell these lies. This is reality. You don't even understand it at the time until you understand physics. Once you understand physics, you're like, how can I change my physiology? So for me, in order to make a change in my reality, I stopped dating. I stopped envisioning it. Like, it comes through sometimes, but that's because what happens is, if a scientist is working on an equation and they're over there, and say I've written Thomas Hertog, and I have, and he's got hundreds of um, bits of my personal information. He's got access to my social media. He's got access to good photos of me, anything. You're going to have people reacting to things. If there are people out there looking at a picture of Marilyn Monroe and they're doing anything inappropriate or anything, I'm accountable for that energy. I'm accountable for it. So then I have to, like, these flashes of thoughts, or I'll be watching a show and I'll change the channel. I don't want to see that kind of stuff because I don't want that energy in my life. I don't want it. I don't. Your energy, how it impacts others, it comes back to you. So I don't, in my next life, want to fall in love with someone because I won't remember this. I don't want to fall in love with someone and then have them cheat on me, or have someone, or have me be jealous. But if I put that energy out there to make people jealous, or I put that energy out there to be unfaithful or dishonest about my intention, it'll come back to me. I just want good, honest conversations and friendships. So, in order to attract those, you have to be genuine about that's what you really want. So, for me, above everything, I want to cause the least amount of chaos for the universe. And I want to be as happy as I can possibly be in whatever reality that is. I could be a dog, I could be a cat, I could be little teeny, teeny aphid. I could be anything. But if I have a peaceful existence and I'm supposed to say part of my energy has to be sedentary. Say I need to pay for energy. Say I committed a crime in this life and someone else went to prison for 2 months for the same crime I committed. It could be like, I don't know, like when I got stoned or when I tried cocaine when I was 40 something. Anything I did, if somebody else got arrested for it and I didn't, I would have to pay for that time based on my intention. If it's legalized at the time, my physical reality still has to be experience some kind of chaos, some kind of um, formal discipline, some kind of something. So it could be that I come back as an ant or a bee and there's a queen bee bossing me around like you got to go pollinate and stuff. I could experience any of that for the exact amount of time based on my intention. So this is how reality works. So all of this stuff is moving around and everything is connected. All of us it's like any kind of machinery. And what happens is if a piece of the machinery breaks, then you go out to the effect of it breaking. Then other things shut down. The government will shut down. That doesn't mean people still don't want, need, or expect. So then that is creating a different kind of energy. And then all of a sudden, it's aligning our big earthquake. So we're going to have a huge earthquake. There's going to be a ginormous earthquake, but there's also going to be a military test going on at the same time. Why? Because if you think that it's okay to send people to another country to kill them, so our people have freedom, that's hypocrisy. And you know what happens? Then we're born into that other country so we can experience what we've began. So if you have a military leader or a president that's like, I want to go to a war in Iraq, and all of a sudden you're like killing all of these people, you're going to be born in Iraq when you die. And you'll experience what it feels like to have a bomb come down on you. You'll experience what it's like to have those troops that you train come in and get at you. And then what happens sometimes if you die together, they become the military leaders that teach you, and then you do it against your own country. This is reality. This is how it works. And so religion it's kind of like it would like if you're talking about chromosomes, it would be a number of chromosome. If you're talking about cancer, it would be a certain part of cancer. Everything is experiencing everything else. That's what cause and effect mean. And so I'm able to actually find who people were. And when you find out who someone was, then you can start figuring out what diseases come from each community. So if you have hypocrisy, like people are like, I hate Donald Trump. I hope he comes back. And one day I said, because I put it out there, I'm like, well, he's going to come back and he's going to be an immigrant somewhere and he's going to be tormented and die and suffer. And people are like, fuck yeah. And like, but you realize those people that are experiencing that, those children, used to be political leaders or lawyers or drug cartel, whoever they were, and they have to experience what they did to other people. Then it's not fuck yeah anymore. It's like, how do we stop this? How do we stop it? Because When you get punished, you're as innocent as those you punish. When you're a perpetrator, you think you're bullying your victims. You're not. You're setting the stage for your reality next time. You come back. Those people that traffic people, they come back being trafficked. If you're being trafficked, you're going to come back to experience the other side of it. And you may stop it. You may prevent it. It depends on your intention, how you got there to begin with. Epstein, right? Epstein, nobody likes Epstein, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's just like, what a jerk, all this. But the reality is now he's going to come back and experience the things that he put other people through, and you're going to see him as a victim. And the second you see him as a victim, then that's where hypocrisy comes in. Instead of judging, we're supposed to say, how can we bring peace to reality? We spend so much time judging and criticizing and condemning and hating. And the irony is, the people that do it as much as the bad people are the religious people. They judge things and then they're judged. Hitler, horrible, not a good person. But he was a vegetarian. He did not eat animals. That's the hard part. So everyone's aligned to experience stuff. So if an animal is a human, that means when you're saying, and a fish is a human, and you're eating certain fish, but you don't want to eat the fish that are at the very bottom, and you say, I don't want to eat those fish. Those fish aren't sanitary. They're not clean. I don't want to eat a pig because a pig is not clean. Logic says you'll eat death, but it has to be good enough to eat. You're okay with death, but it has to be good. And then when you're so good and you die, people then don't understand why this would occur. If people really paid attention to science, it would be a little overwhelming. It would be a little intimidating. If they understood the Bible, a lot of them would never leave the house. They'd be pretty scared to sin, to eat meat, to do anything. But I like to see it this way. God sees everything you do because everything you do is to God. If you're pretending to make out with your pillow, that cotton was part of God's physiology. If you are throwing something, that's part of God's physiology. So you know what happens with cause and effect. You know what I've noticed? If I throw something, I bump into something. Something accidentally falls on me. If I scratch the floor, I get a scratch on me. If I throw food away, then I will notice that I have too much of the wrong kinds of food, and I will crave things that I don't want to eat. If you pity people, whatever you pity, you'll have abundance of. So and then when you waste it, you'll experience scarcity next time. So then you won't have it to waste. If we learn to speak in the way cause and effect work, everything would be so different. Everything would be so different. I'm a huge advocate to have schooling at night and fun during the day. Getting outside and playing, doing good things for the community, and instead of watching TV from like 5 to 10, People could be at school or at work from 5 to 10. If people understood how the laws of nature work, they'd stop committing crimes at night because they'd realize all they're doing is creating their next reality. Now, what happens to a lot of people that are like on Wall Street, all these investors and stuff, what you're doing is using borrowed money. So if you take someone's money that they worked hard for and then you trade it and they lose their money, you don't get to go, oh, sorry. Especially if you know that, sorry, you know that there's a chance that they'll lose money. Your next lifetime, you won't have money. And you'll pay for borrowing someone's money. Could be bad credit, could be anything. Um, say you spend your whole life worrying about your credit and you stop worrying about your friendships and you're like, I can't be with people like that. Those people aren't good enough for me, blah, 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 yada, 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 yada. Um, you'll end up experiencing their reality and your next life will be much different. Um, so it doesn't matter what you think you're getting away with. There's no such thing as YOLO. You don't only live once. And Drake's next lifetime, someone's going to put a hit out on him. He's got all these hits, right? All these great hits. Next lifetime, he's going to be a wanted person. And because that's what he sings about. So that's what he's manifesting. What you sing about, you manifest. He's talking about your bitches and your hoes. Next lifetime, he's going to be a bitch and a hoe, and so is your mother. That's not even funny. But someone might joke and think it's funny until it's your reality. We need to stop calling women these things. And to let you know, men, you're going to be a woman the next time. That's fact. My son is a little girl right now. And my son was this charismatic. He was charismatic just like Diana. He was beautiful. He was popular. He had great style. People loved him, but he had a drug addiction. And what happened is Diana used to help the forlorn, the sad people, the people that were charismatic and kind. And she would go hug them. She'd go party with her celebrity friends, but she'd hug the people that weren't celebrities that were also dealing with AIDS or drug addiction or whatever, just like her friends. But these people weren't wealthy. So then my son would end up not being wealthy and being surrounded by kids that had great wealth who were also addicts. And they would all experience everyone from a different perspective. Now, Noah wasn't born into poverty, but, and he had the things he wanted when he was a kid. But now he was reborn into wealth and celebrity. And so he will experience the freedoms that Albert Einstein's income is still making, that Princess Diana left behind. And so with me, I understand that I'll be aligned to be part of my son's life again. But I also know that based on him passing away from a drug overdose, that someone in his life will pass away, probably in a car accident involving narcotics. So this is the stuff, and then he'll experience losing a parent because I experienced losing a child. And so this is how I predict things that will occur based on the lives people have had, the words, everything would be part of this reality. And so Luke Perry had left behind two children, Sophie and Jack. I think his son's name is Jack. Um, he goes by Wolfgang or something. I don't know what he goes by. But Sophie was 20 when Noah passed away, and Noah passed away with his friend Sophie. And Luke Perry's son was 22 when Luke Perry passed away, and Noah, his friend Noah, was 22 when Noah passed away. Noah passed away at the age of 22 on the 22nd day of 2020. And I gave birth to my first son, Ryan, when I was 22. And Princess Diana was 20 when she was 9 months pregnant with William. And Noah passed away. They were found on 9/22, but the last day that I communicated with him through text was 9/20. So all of these numbers create a conclusive math pattern. And so then you would go backwards and it would be the number 2. And Diana was born on the first day, and Marilyn was born on the first day. So that would be 2. But also 2 is February. Now it's February right now. So February 22nd, something will occur. Now, when I was experiencing all of this stuff, I'm going to go back again. Anyway, I was at Kinko's and my friend Preston walked in. And Preston walks in and I look at him and it's not Preston. It's like Preston, and he recognizes me, but he was like a robot. Like he wasn't even really there. And there was a spirit inside of him, and these blue sparkles came from his eyes. I was like, I'm crazy. This is not really happening. And then it was really trippy. And then later, Preston and I are not friends anymore because I had contacted him and said something really dark is coming to you. And he said, you're not allowed to speak in my space anymore. And this was right before COVID. And I'm like, I'm not allowed to, I'm like, screw you. And so anyway, he got really angry with me. And it was before Burning Man. And there was this picture of him, and there was this statues of women mannequins, female mannequins, and they were all white. And I'm like, something's happening. So I took a screenshot, and it's somewhere on one of my phones, I'm sure. But his dad passed away right after I took that photo, the screenshot. And it was because he had written about his father in his book, and he kind of judged his dad like, my dad did the best he could. But Preston's wife was pregnant and stayed home while Preston went to Burning Man, knowing that the guy who started Burning Man had died there the year before. So in knowing that, he risked him not being there. So that's the universe telling me what's coming in Preston's life. And so Preston and I don't speak anymore, but he's like, you can't talk to me anymore. I am God and I am powerful. And he had this photo of him with the blue eyes. I was like, what the hell is with these blue eyes? I know I really saw them. So, but this energy, what happens is, people will say God made them do it. You see it a lot of people that commit crimes or whatever, they say, God made me do it. What's happening is God's showing them who they really are, and they have the choice to ask to not be who they really are. And because even myself, when I was experiencing it, I didn't know what the hell was going on. All I knew was I rented some bins, like those bins they have when they're doing construction. And I threw most of my stuff away. I was like, I'm throwing all my stuff away. And I took two, I think it was 2 pairs of new Ugg boots, and I threw them in the garbage. They were still in the box. And the last pair of shoes I bought my son was a pair of Ugg sandals. And in his social media, he's wearing them. And it says, I could get used to this cozy shit. And it's him in his Uggs. And when and that's the universe telling this stuff in advance, because I was sitting in front of a church. I was playing Fergie's music, and Fergie's video didn't come out until like 2017, 2018. I don't remember, where she's sitting in a church and she's talking about having all of these um, delusions, like she had been doing drugs, she'd been doing heroin or meth or something. And then my son died from a drug overdose. But I was sitting in front of a church and I screamed at the top of my lungs. I said, "You killed my son." And it felt like a father talking about someone that had killed his son. And I was later, as I started understanding, I'm like, did I just experience God screaming about them killing Jesus? Like, what am I experiencing? And then when my son died, he was showing me that what I've experienced with my son, I had experienced before, but I was the son. And so I'm still trying to figure out who that was and what I was experiencing, but it was very real. And so I checked myself into Cedars Hospital for 21. I was in there for 21 days. I was in there when Michael Jackson passed away. And when Michael Jackson passed away, I knew, I'm like, he's going to protect me. And then I thought, I don't know Michael Jackson. Why is he going to protect me? But I used to be romantically involved with Eddie Griffin, who was with Michael Jackson. And Eddie Griffin was at my apartment and I was in this apartment building in Sherman Oaks, next to the Sherman Oaks Mall. It's an apartment building right there. And at the time I was there, Edward James Olmos was there at the same time. They were renovating his house, and I used to see him on the elevator. Now, this tells me something because he played a math teacher. Now, all of this stuff tells part of the story. And then I ended up working for a girl who is friends with his niece. We'd all be connected. And then Sarah was her friend, and I worked for Sarah first. And Sarah is a famous Thai actress and model. And she just had her first baby. Now, she used to say I was her surrogate mother, so to speak, um, her mom in the States. And she's like this really lovely person. I genuinely love her. So I know that she was related to me in a past life. And then I know she'll be in my life in the future. But at the same time, I try to figure out this equation. Now, my daughter was Freddie Mercury. And Freddie Mercury did a song with Michael Jackson called State of Shock. Now, the first and only time that I was away from my children on a vacation, so to speak, where I wasn't in the hospital, where I intentionally went away. I went to Canada and I had this boyfriend named Cameron, and he was the lead singer in a band called State of Shock. And so all of these words, all of these patterns would follow wherever I go. So everything that Marilyn Monroe experienced, I experienced from a different perspective. My parents, um, just like I'm just always where I'm supposed to be. My ex, his favorite basketball player is Jerry West. My stepdad's name was Jerry, and he owned a bar called Nashville West. Now, I asked my ex, my daughter was 5 months old. It was Christmas Day. Christmas Day again. Remember, I got called a virus on Christmas Day. Christmas Day. So that tells me Jerry West virus. Now it's starting to make sense. Um, but Jerry could also be my stepdad's rebirth and someone. But Jerry is also the name of my ex-husband, and I only have one ex-husband. Now, my dad's name is Phil Douglas, and my brother's name is Douglas Phillip. And I used to date this guy named Douglas McCoy. And when I did the prediction of the Florida school shooting, I didn't know what I was predicting. I had no clue. I just started talking about my dad and my dog, Nikki, and then my friend Nicole, and they call her Nick, and Christmas, Saint Nick. But I didn't say all this stuff, but all of this stuff, but I did say my friend Nicole, and I did say my dog Nikki. And I was driving down, it's right across the street from the place that I had a park that I had my son's gathering when he passed away. The universe aligns everything. And I let his friends pick the park, and I didn't even realize it was the park, the last park I went to with my son, and I took photos of him, and he was picking up debris from the grass to give back to the universe. And so that day there was a big rainbow, and I kept singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow before, and then this big rainbow appeared. And my first apartment was on North Fuller Street in Hollywood, and it was a fully furnished apartment, and it had bedding, and the bedding had a rainbow on it. And I said, I don't want that bedding. I don't want that bedding. And my ex is like, you ungrateful bitch. What's wrong with this bedding? But I'm like, I don't want that bedding. And I had no idea that that's why I didn't want that bedding, because it would remind me of it was a prophecy. And so everything was a prophecy. And I had no idea. And my housekeeper, she had AIDS. And Freddie Mercury died of AIDS. And Freddie Mercury's last video, um, there was this video, and he's pretending to be a housekeeper. And my daughter and I were housekeepers, and Princess Diana was a housekeeper. She was her sister's housekeeper, and she was a preschool assistant. So the universe sees someone's reality. Now, Princess Diana did nothing more than be a kind, loving person, and who made minimum wage. And so, what happens to a kind, loving person that makes minimum wage in the state of California? You get some form of government assistance quite often. And especially if you have children. So, a royal family member is merely um, high profiled welfare. And so, if you look down upon someone that's on welfare, and someone that's born into welfare, like if you're born into royalty, every person that is royal will be on regular welfare at some point in their next life. And they will have great poverty. So, this is what I'm talking about. You don't get to pretend. If you're J-Lo and you're all of these girls and you're pretending you're strippers in movies and you're like getting paid big money and you're committing crimes in the movies, and your next lifetime you'll commit crimes and you'll be just a regular stripper, and you won't be a famous millionaire celebrity. You'll just be a regular stripper because that's what you were pretending to be. So be very careful about the parts you take because they become your next reality. Um, so anyway, Marilyn Monroe did these parts, and my left foot is about that much smaller than my right foot now because I had a cast on my foot for I had a lot of different casts on my foot, and Marilyn Monroe was cast in a lot of different movies. Um, the things she did became part of my reality, and all of the words, the addresses I had, all of the numbers, everything, they all take you to the next place you're going to live, where you're going to work. Everything's predetermined. Everything. You have the free will to choose a different path, but whatever path you choose, everything that happens on the way, there's nothing you could have done. There's nothing you could have done because whatever you want, there's some kind of ethical hypocrisy in what you want because you're born to experience your repayment. And when you try to get away from it, that's what free will is. It's like, when people try to escape from prison, if you haven't breached hypocrisy, like I was telling a bunch of people before, I was saying, if you wanted to get Donald Trump out of office, there had to be one person free of any judgment. They had to have not committed any of the crimes he'd committed, any of the character flaws. How many of you have called someone ugly? How many of you have laughed in a movie when they said words that were harsh, made fun of someone? The movie Dumb and Dumber. How many of you, that's why Jim Carrey's experiencing the things he's experiencing based on the characters he's played. These things become your reality. All of the stuff you say, everything you judge, depression comes from what you judge of another. If you're born depressed, it's because you judged in your past life. You could have been a therapist in your past life. If you're a therapist in this life, you'll be a patient in your next life. That's just reality. If you're a lawyer in this life, you'll be a criminal in your next life. That's why the legal system is so backed up. That's why it's called the private sector that owns all these prisons, which is now, I think, no longer. I believe Biden is putting a stop to it. But that will create chaos within the system. And because what's already been done, it's good for progress. It's good for progress, but it creates hypocrisy. And so for the duration of his presidency, there will be a lot of chaos. Right now, but it won't be violent chaos. It will be the wealthy will all of a sudden be very angry because they're having to pay taxes. And churches will have to pay taxes. Religious institutions will have to pay taxes. And so once religion begins paying taxes, things will start shifting in a positive way. But until churches pay taxes, this is what the universe has had to do to get churches to pay taxes. And when they start paying taxes, things will start balancing out. everything will start getting better. And so it's shifting. It's getting ready to happen. Um, but churches paying taxes will be a good thing. More people will donate, churches will pay taxes, and more housing will be built. Affordable housing will be built. Right now in Los Angeles, it's $7,500 for them to build one of those tiny homes, and they're taking people straight off the streets and putting them in these homes and rehabilitating them to get to be rent independent or homeowner independent, getting them jobs and so forth. They need to do that for everyone. Anybody that makes under, say, $30,000 a year should be given a free pass on rent for at least 2 years, everyone. And it would balance things out, because if you're living in a place and you don't make very much money, your quality of life is very different because you're working 60 hours a day usually. It usually means that, I mean, rents are incredibly high in California. So most of your rent is going on your home. It's really hard to have perfect credit when you're doing that. And it's really hard to ever feel um, peaceful unless you have more family. And then you create more family, and then you create, what happens is then their young kids are like, it's okay, the government will pay me X amount of dollars, I'll live with my mom, blah, blah, blah. Then I get to have a baby, I get to stay home, and I get to have a little cash. I can go get, Starbucks if I want. It's that simple. You're having young kids making adult decisions, and they don't really understand it because then their mom picks up the slack. Then their mom's working like 40 to 60 hours, but that's based on what the mom did in the past life. It doesn't matter. We need to stop the cycle, because every rich person is going to be poor and every poor person is going to be rich, and it's just going to keep going back and forth and back and forth. Every bad person is going to be a victim, every victim is going to be a bad person. It's just a fact. So until we stop judging, because judgment is creating all of this chaos. And so for me, it's really hard not to always judge. I try not to judge. But regardless, I'll be sitting there and I'll think, hey, I don't want to judge. But what happens is I start telling people, hey, this is going to happen. And the people get really scared, or a lot of people write me from around the world and they're like, you were so spot on. I mean, you were right about everything you said. One young lady wrote me and asked, I was correct about all the stuff that we talked about. Um, and then I was sitting there later and I didn't know she was talking about me to people where she lived. And I didn't know where she lived. I just knew she didn't live in California. I don't ask people, hey, where do you live? Are you even in this state or country? So I started Googling something, and I went to Wikipedia and I was Googling something about something not even related to her. And there I was. And then by association, I Googled something else within the Wikipedia, and then something else and something else. And then I came across this little piece of land in another country. And I'm like, that means something. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to screenshot it and then I'm going to post it on my Instagram. So she writes me and she goes, I know you could not have known this because I didn't tell you. That part of land is 5 minutes from my house. I was like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that I did that. And I don't even remember where she lives. She lives somewhere beyond Australia. And it was just this little piece of land, and 5 minutes from her house. And so I'm able to know stuff without really understanding. I had this client, and she's like, I want you to do a prediction. So I started talking about this volcano that I had painted. I'm like, I painted this volcano, blah, 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 blah. And it had the rock going up it. It was like the rock was going up the side of the volcano with fire. And that was before I understood that chromosomes, and then there was Dwayne, um, Dune, and then he's Dwayne W. So anyway, and then I am looking at the twin chromosomes underneath the volcano. So then I am like, oh, firstly, in case nobody knew, Jesus, there was another child at birth. There were two children. They were twin energies. And so Jesus was the obvious one, but the twin has been roaming the earth just doing their thing, and nobody knew. God said, I gave you my only son, mentioned nothing of a daughter. In cause and effect, there would be one and the other. So these things start explaining things. So then if you've got the sister of Jesus still roaming the earth, right? And whatever they did to Jesus, she's going to experience things. And what happens is, if you have the twin of Jesus and she strolls up and she's really poor and she's like, I have nothing, will you help me? And you're like, fuck no, man, I'm not going to help you, beggar. Jesus had nothing. But he wouldn't ask you for anything, but because you're asking Jesus for everything, his sister would ask you. And so by his sister asking you, and you deny her, then you're denying Jesus, and then you're showing God who you really are. God's like, so you only help, like, you would help Jesus if Jesus showed up and could prove he was Jesus. Like, what would Jesus have to do? He would have to do something really good for me. I'm like, that's not how Jesus would work. You would have to be like totally disfigured, blind, in pain or something. But Jesus made the wine stronger. Making the wine stronger created conflict and chaos and hypocrisy. And so, and even helping someone that wasn't well, he was unsentencing that guy of his sins. Now, in order to do one, you have to do everybody, or it's not fair. And then there's hypocrisy. So then Jesus had to pay for the sin of those that he healed, but he doesn't have to pay for everybody's sins. So when you pray and ask for more than you already have, you're saying, God, I want to be the chosen. I want to be better than everybody else. I want to be treated better than everybody else. That's where hypocrisy of energy comes in. And so I'm able to predict stuff that'll happen in families, my own included. I'm able to predict stuff that'll happen, or at least really understand it as it's happening or already happened. Then I can go find the math. I can go, oh, now I remember. I remember. And then I can show you the math. But it's a lot. When you understand the universe in the way that I understand it, you're like walking around one of two ways. If I'm walking my dog, I'm like a little anxious because now my dog is one of three pets. I had seven. So we have Daisy, who is also when Princess Queen Elizabeth, when her father passed away, she was in Kenya. Kenya was also the name of the dog that Michael Jackson left his children. Now, the Queen is 94 years old, and that's September 4th. So this will align to know when she's going to pass away. Now, the queen was related to my grandmother. I'm trying to figure out exactly who she was because I don't have all of my grandmother's relatives' birth dates and stuff. I have a lot of birth dates, but I don't have all of them. So that would be something that like someone privileged in the government or the Census Bureau or something would be able to get. And so all of this stuff is already there. All of the math is already there. Because I know who I've been, all of that math has been documented. Because I know who I am now, I can document all of that math. Plus, I've known a lot of famous people and I can document their timeline because their calendars are set years in advance. So all of this stuff becomes a math equation. It's just a one big giant math equation. The colors, the patterns, everything I do. Um, Noah's new mom and dad. If I paint or I get something new and then I take a photo and I post it, she posts something in response of the same, but from a different perspective. And so it's fascinating, but at the same time, it's not so fascinating. Um, because when you're the person that knows all of this information, who do you tell it to? You just keep talking until someone comes along. That's what happened with Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein presented his theory, people dismissed it, gave it to Planck. Planck read it, found it interesting, got a group of people together, scientists. There was a solar eclipse. They were able to prove his theory. The next day, he was a famous, most brilliant scientist in the world. And the day before, he couldn't even get a job as a professor or a scientist. The day before, couldn't even do it. Same with me. The only luxury I've had is I've been able to um, have social media. And I've been able to perform at the Comedy Store or the where did I Citizens Brigade. I can perform on stage. I've performed at private venues, people's podcasts. This guy at the podcast. So anyway, I'm going to tell you about a couple of predictions that I did. I had this client, and she was on her way to Bali, and she goes, "I want you to predict something for me." And I said, "Well, I painted this volcano, and I did this prediction about a bunch of people dying at a music venue, and a natural occurrence was going to take the lives of people at a music venue." And she's like, "Oh, whatever." So she was on her way to Bali, and then the volcano erupted, and a bunch of people at the music festival. And she's like, she was still not interested. She's like, "Well, that was no big deal." She goes, "But that is where I used to go with my dad all the time." And then she goes, "I want to know about my love life. What can you tell me about my love life?" And I'm like, and some of my predictions, I don't understand when I'm saying them, but I go, "Well, you're gonna be on the same plane as someone that you like love, that like there's a love or a lust there's like a friendship, but a intimate relationship, but you've never met, but he's like a good friend." And I don't understand what that meant. And I go, "But you're gonna be on the same plane, but you're not gonna see each other. And you're gonna run in, you're gonna I said run into, but you're gonna meet up in traffic and you're gonna know who this person is right away." And she was just like, "You sound like a crazy person." I know she was thinking, "What the hell?" Because even I was just like, I don't even know what the hell that means. She got to Bali. She ran into a guy in traffic. She recognized him instantly. It was a guy that she'd been texting on Tinder for a year. So they had gotten intimate and they gotten to be friends, but they'd never met. And that's what that meant. So that was funny. but I know things and I don't know what they always mean. Like, I've actually heard government conversations. So that means if someone is documenting my conversations, I'm able to hear their conversations, and the universe will align it so that this can happen. And so, and I can hear them plain as day. Like, it's as if they're just talking right to me, and I'm not hearing voices. These are legit conversations, but they're prophecies. They're of what people will say once they get within my when once I allow the study of my everyday reality. And I already told Thomas Hertog he's not allowed to study me. And because if he does, then he would pass. And that's because he's already spoken publicly and said that he could control the universe, which means his intention is to manipulate. And so, in me knowing this, I know that I can't trust him. And so, I don't trust any physicists, quite honestly. And it's because everyone's in it for themselves. Um, Neil Tice deGrasse, when I went to see him and I wanted to talk to him. He wanted to have nothing to do with me. They're like, you have to pay to have a meet and greet with him. I'm like, but I am someone of scientific, like, they're like, whatever, you groupie. And I'm like, I'm not a group. And that was just the universe telling me he's irrelevant. And the reason why is because he had already made fun of Pluto. Now, he made fun of Pluto and said, I'm the one that got rid of Pluto. I'm like, you didn't get rid of Pluto. Pluto's still there, mofo, whether you want it to be or not. And your next life, you're going to come back as a dumbass. So, what's going to happen is he's made a lot of money off of science, and to mock the one thing that earns his living and respect, I have no respect for him now. Zero. And I don't think of him as a scientist anymore. I think of him as like this rude, uninformed, reiterated um, person of interest. Bottom line, he's just some pervert. That's all he is to me. He's some creepy, perverse person that has a fascination with power. And that's why he tried to study the universe, because he thought he has more wisdom than the universe, not knowing that the universe will tell you exactly what it wants to tell you. I have no degree in physics. I didn't even graduate from high school. I have studied physics, I have studied quantum theory, I have studied some medicine, I've studied biology. I have studied so much on my own because I really want to communicate, and I want to do so in a way that allows me to help other people um, talk to the universe in a more respectful way, even though I'm rude at times. I am rude. I am not polite, but it's a lot of energy coming at me sometimes. Sometimes I'll just sit there and, like, if I want to know something, I'll just like spend time with my granddaughter or my daughter. And when I have genuine moments of kindness with my family, it's as if the universe has all the chaos that came before the calm. That was him. We all paid for some stuff so we could have those moments of calm that bring strength, that bring patience and understanding and communication. And then it allows us to handle the stuff that's going to come. And that's what God did before my son passed away. It had just been utter like chaos, but he gave me the strength to hold it together during those times when my ex took our home. And I think about the hard times we went through. And because I know who we were and what kind of people we really are, I trust God. I don't trust human beings because human beings don't trust anybody. And human beings don't trust anybody because they're not trustworthy themselves. And so for me, if I eat um, parts of an animal, I'm aware of what I'm doing. And I make the decision to offer an exchange of energy. So when I am an animal, they will be aligned when they're a human to eat me. Sounds gross, right? But it's fact. So then they'll be aligned to eat me. And when I come through them, what happens is what you eat, you experience those feelings and then you project them out into the world. So if you're eating meat and you get in a bad mood, you get really irritable and really frustrated, and then sometimes people get sick. Sometimes it's just the mood. And you'll be aligned to experience per exact measurement of suffering, per exact ounce, pound, however much meat you eat. You'll feel that hostility, that rage, that whatever. And the person you're with was aligned to experience whatever energy you put out there. But that's if you're telling yourself, I don't want anybody to talk down to that person that I love, but after you just ate a 2 pound steak or whatever, or 5 pound, I don't know, and then you're really mean to somebody, you would experience the repercussions. Then someone else would be mean to that person you were mean to. And if you got mad at that someone else for being mean to the same person you were mean to, you might have a heart attack. You might get sick. You might have to change your diet. So you don't do that anymore. So you're no longer aligned to do that anymore. The universe will align it. If you hit your child and you hit your child and you hit your child, and then someone else hits your child, and you go after that someone else that hits your child, you'll be aligned to either not have that child in your life, or you'll be aligned to never be able to hit that child again. It could be you going to jail, it could be parenting, it could be anything. But regardless, you don't get to do something and then tell someone else they can't do the same thing. So it's a lot. It's a lot of particles are complex. They are moving everywhere. You've got duality going on. You've got cause and effect, but basically it's just cause and effect. Everything experiencing cause and effect. Everything experiencing duality, everything being particles, everything being energy that turned into matter. And we evolve. So you have this energy that starts out and it's like the allegory. It's there, it knows it's there, and it's beginning to experience itself. And then it understands. And imagine if you don't know what any of your energy is experiencing, and there are no trees, and there are no flowers, and there's no anything, and that energy manifests a like energy. It's like, hmm. All it has to say is, hmm, and that's a vibration. And then there's another energy that goes, hmm. And then it's saying it back, and then it's going back. And then all of a sudden, it's wanting more. And then this one's wanting more. And they're taking turns wanting more. And then you evolve into spores and algae and fungi and trees and minerals and all of these things. And then in order to sustain this, it needs something stronger. And then the elements become stronger. And then you have animals that manifest, that become characteristics of these energies and the emotions. And then all of a sudden, everything just keeps manifesting. Like red nail polish. Why would red be the first nail polish? Dry blood. What does an animal do when it claws at you and digs into your skin? Its nails would be red with blood. We would manifest, everything would start from somewhere. And so then you would go to hair and skin and the epidermis and all of these things. And then you would go to building structures. A tell is a building on top of a building on top of layers of residue of society, right? So you have all of this stuff and everything is happening and the whole universe is experiencing itself, just like your body. Everything you put into your body, you put in a milkshake and you put in a candy bar and you put in a hot dog and you put in pizza and all this while you're at the fair trying to have fun. Whee! And then you're like on this roller coaster and it just goes, what? Well, all of that went into you. Then you're thinking, how did they make the corn dog? What parts of the physiology suffered when they made the corn dog? What was the process? What was the machine? What is the machine doing on the roller coaster you're on? All of the things. It would be repeating itself. You would be the hot dog on the conveyor belt going, woo. Everything you do is a reaction to an action. Everything you eat, your experience a reaction. It's an action, reaction. Everything's experience. There's the cow. It's like sitting there and it's like, oh, they're feeding me. That's so nice of them. Oh, now they're feeding me to someone else. And then when you're being fed, eventually you'll be fed to someone else. That's reality. We are born to experience what we leave behind. So you might not think much of a chicken and their eggs until you come back as a person that has no eggs and can't have babies. This is how this stuff works. This is reality. Depression is you're dealing with, like Princess Diana dealt with depression. Why? Because she was Albert Einstein. Why would Albert Einstein deal with depression? Well, because for many reasons, and because of his wife who did not want to divorce him, but divorced him when she was promised the money from the Nobel Prize. Albert Einstein didn't think that much of himself, wondered why he was born. Noah ended up experiencing those feelings. Princess Diana experienced those feelings. It's when you start understanding that you like it was hard for me too, and it's still hard for me too. I'm like, why do I know all of this? What is the importance of me knowing all of this? And it seems surreal. Sometimes I'm like, "This isn't really happening." I mean, I just can't possibly know all this stuff, and how come nobody else knows all this stuff? These are brilliant scientists, but when I listen to them talk, I'm like, "They're not so brilliant." They're like they're not including themselves in the equation. They're just going out there talking shit about each other, being mean to each other, not wanting to help each other. I'm like, "Oh, damn, they're the problem. They're the problem." So then here I am. I'm just like a girl who doesn't understand what the heck is going on until I realize what's going on. And these scientists had predicted that there would be someone that in the universe that would tell stories about how the universe works, that the universe is far more spiritual than they ever imagined. And they were trying to find this person that possessed this set of numbers, and they were trying to figure out who they were, what they knew, how they knew. And I'm writing them. I'm like, "Hey, I know a bunch of stuff. I know a bunch of stuff." And I'm pretty sure I'm that person. The only one that followed up and presented his theory was Stephen Hawking, but then he did pass away 2 weeks later on Albert Einstein's birthday. That's not a coincidence. So, and Noah passed away, and if I go back in science, I'll find out, but I haven't. It's really, I have to think of Noah right now as Albert and Diana, because when I look at pictures of Noah, I get really sad. And because I really miss him. And I know that all of us got ourselves here based on who we were in our past lives, what we asked for, what we wanted to experience. But Noah had to experience me as a mother because his children had to experience him as a father. And he was a scientist that spent a great deal of his time working on this theory. And I was a mom that spent a great deal of time dealing with infidelity, just like Albert's wife had to deal with. And then Albert, he married his first cousin, and the person that caused me all of the heartache married his second cousin. So energy shifts in each lifetime. So I had to experience as a scientist what Albert had to experience in order to take off where Albert left behind. Now, eventually, whom Noah is now will take this theory even further. And we're the scientists that were meant to do this. And so my granddaughter is brilliant. Like, she knows things. And there's this man named Graham Hancock, and he writes about God's magicians. And I know my granddaughter's one. I know for a fact I'm one. I know my son was one. And so, and my daughter is a different kind. It's really interesting. She just knows, and she just knows stuff. But she's, I think, probably like I was, a little afraid of it. It can be intimidating. It can be intimidating. So, if I ever walk up to you and I've said it to people, like full blown said, "Hey, the person's mad because someone's getting ready to pass," and then someone passed, and my son passed also. So, but I'm not angry anymore, and I know who my son was, and I know that he doesn't know me, so he's not there missing me. He's not there going, "Oh, I miss you. I'm so sad." He's there being cuddled and loved and cared for, and he's 4 months old. So she's very happy where she is. And she was born into the kind of life she wanted. And just because we want something doesn't mean the process of achieving what we wanted to achieve is going to be super, super simple. Just like whatever I wanted, Marilyn Monroe wanted to know herself. She wanted to understand herself. And so that's what God's showing me. I'm learning how to understand myself. And the process has not been pleasant. It has not been super fun. Um, the only fun times that I had were going to movies with my kids or amusement parks with my kids or shopping with my kids. The rest of it was a very, like, we spent a lot of time together. And that's because celebrities usually say, I don't have any real friends. They have their people around them. And we had people around us, housekeepers or nannies. They were like our family. So it becomes a totally different reality. And when you start understanding the world is magical and mystical and not in, you know, and I'm not going to judge. I'm not judging because I had to have been that way at some point, or I'll be that way at another point. But people that just buy crystals and think they're performing magic, I'm like, you're buying a crystal to give it your negative energy. That's not very nice. Why don't you learn how to figure out your own negative energy instead of trying to pass it on to another element? Like, why would you want to do that? That shows how people don't think. They don't use logic. People are like, oh, Albert Einstein was super smart. And I'm like, but do you know anything about him? I didn't until I started studying. So I started studying and I am like, man, he's just like a normal guy who was just really, really smart. And, but it's not even smart, it's intentional. He really wanted to understand God. Like he really wanted to. And so for me, I just really wanted people to go to bed at night without feeling fear and for everyone to go to bed and not hungry and not in scarcity or fear. And this is the path to it. The only way you can create calm in a world of chaos is to put everybody on the same level. And this is what God's doing. And pretty soon the rich won't be rich anymore. There will be no such thing as billionaires in 20 years. No such thing. And so the world's going to be a different place. And the only way anybody can contribute to a more peaceful reality for the universe. If you ask for peace for the universe, you got to trust the process. And I'd heard people say that about, but they didn't say understanding it, because if they understood it, they wouldn't keep having children. But the reality is, in order to find peace, in reality, you have to respect that reality is always changing. When I pass away, my next lifetime, I will be someone that I've always wanted to be. And I will be born into a life unlike any that I've ever had. And my life will be as peaceful as I try to make it for others. And I really do try. And so I know that this lifetime, I had to understand what it felt like to have what I wanted, but not what I needed, and to have more of what I thought I needed. Like, I wanted to love this person that would protect me and care for me. And so I trusted them, and they lied. But Marilyn did that in her past life, and I did that in this life. I divorced my husband for this person. And I always just kept my reality as peaceful as I could. And I began caring more about my children than I did a relationship or myself. And, but in doing that, I just bought stuff because I needed to feel like someone was acknowledging that someone cared about me. Like when you're shopping, this is why people shop a lot. When you're shopping and someone is selling you something, that person that's selling you something believes that someone, yourself or someone else, cares enough to put you in the position to have more. And so it became a way for me to feel like I was worthy. And then I started shopping at Goodwill, and everything changed. Now, the Goodwill they have here is way different. Um, I think they have them. They have a Goodwill where like things are on the rack. But like I said, in 2008, I got rid of my designer handbags. I got rid of my shoes. I got rid of my clothes. I had dumpsters come, and I threw most of my stuff away. And then I sold some of my really pricey handbags to buy cat food. That sounds like a crazy lady, but I wasn't. It was God. I begged God. See, I don't believe in like asking for stuff, but I begged God to help me not love my ex anymore. I mean, I begged. And all of a sudden, within days, my ex hired someone, everything was being taken away from me. I was throwing stuff away. People were thinking I was crazy because I was getting rid of stuff. But I asked God to help me get over him, and he said, I want to show you who he really is. And he did. And I got over him. But I can't hate my ex because I got myself there. And nothing happened to me that I didn't deserve. But I hope my ex understands that everything that's going to happen to him through God, he deserves. And my ex doesn't know that his son was the child that I lost. And that when his spouse congratulated me on the death of my child, she cursed her own child. So that's what it means in the Bible when it says, keep your enemies close. I'm no one's enemy. I'm really not. I'm not an enemy. I'm not a friend. I'm just one energy who wants to create the most peaceful reality for themselves and the least amount of work for God. And so, in doing so, our children are born to us based on who we were in our past life. So, knowing that my children are part of my past life and part of my future lives, I want them to have the most peaceful, loving experiences they can have. And if it means they won't be super wealthy and they won't be gorgeous, or they'll be super gorgeous, but they won't be, whatever it means that brings them happiness, that's what I want for them. Even if it means I don't get everything I want all the time, I know that God will let me experience their joy. And so for me, that stuff makes me happy. But quantum physics isn't what everybody thinks it is. And you have a bunch of stiff scientists out there in their suits, all trying to impress each other. I'm like, Jesus was a carpenter, and God is the entire universe. And God doesn't get treated so great all the time. And the things people do to God's body are discouraging. Like, I look around my apartment and I see all of the things, all of the elements that came from God, and I could go outside and enjoy that part of God. But to go outside means I'm surrounded by a bunch of people, and I don't like people. Oh, oh, that's weird. So someone's phone just rang. Somebody's got their speakerphone on. Now, I didn't explain about phone ringing. When I hear a phone ring, it means someone's died. So this guy's listening to like reggae music and his phone just went off. And he's listening to some kind of reggae music. Now, earlier I was reading about Ziggy Marley. And Ziggy came up earlier because, not in this video, but Ziggy came up when I gave birth to my first son, Ryan. My friend Ziggy was with me he came to pick me up from the hospital to take me home. And my first boyfriend, his name was Mark Higginbotham. And Mark passed away when we were young from a brain tumor. And Mark and I broke up, and he used to have this blue, um, deep blue, metallic colored Mustang. And it was a 65, I think, or a 64 and a half, he called it. And and it said Dragula. And so the universe, they talked about this person, and this person, the universe revolves around this person's numbers and can tell a story about their life. Now, Dragula is Dracula, right? But he said Dragula. Um, but Mark and I broke up, and he gave me this Ziggy card. Ziggy is a cartoon character. He gave me this Ziggy card, and it had I don't remember if it had one dime or two dimes in it. And back then in the 80s, it was a dime to call somebody. So recently I've been finding dimes on the sidewalk and stuff. And so I know that's something communicating with me. And my son, um, there is there are two things occurring right now. Now I know where my daughter's dog Marley was euthanized on April 5th last year. And Noah's mom, her birthday is April 23rd, which is, and she announced the birth of her baby on September 23rd. And the baby's nickname was Ziggy. And so all of these things would be part of these patterns. And Noah passed away on Lyme Street, and her mom and her sister and her brother have Lyme disease. And like I was saying earlier, I was talking about my first apartment was on Fuller Street. And when I picked up my son's ashes at the opposite end of Fuller Street in Santa Ana, and I lived in Hollywood. So, and when Noah was in a coma, he was at Presbyterian Hospital in Burbank. And it wasn't a year later, that was on August 21st, my mother's birthday. And then on March 4th, which was also the day I sold my house in 2014, and Stephen Hawking died on the 14th, and Noah was Albert Einstein, and his birthday was on the 14th. The hospital Noah was in a coma was in a coma at is the same hospital that Luke Perry passed away at. And the woman that consoled me, Noah's friend, his mom, her name's Jasmine, she came to visit me at the hospital. It was my first time meeting her. She was also the woman that consoled Luke Perry's fiance when Luke Perry passed away. And that's not a coincidence. And so all of these things create reality. Now I'm getting ready to move out of Los Angeles, and I'm getting ready to move to North Carolina. Now I know that when I move, something catastrophic is going to occur in Los Angeles. And so I had already predicted some things, and also San Francisco. And in San Francisco, there's going to be an earthquake. And this earthquake is going to be at the same time, there's going to be some kind of military test, some kind of missile launch or something under the water. And it's going to happen at the same time. And they're not going to have any idea this earthquake is going to happen when they do this. And so it's going to create this massive reaction, and the bridge will be out, and it's going to take out all the way to Atherton. And so in knowing this, I'm like, I'm just moving. Plus the rent's much, much cheaper. The rent here is like $1,900 a month, and my rent there will be like $500 a month. And my daughter's moving to a different state than I am, but we won't be that far apart. And I'm actually going to live not too far from my daughter's fiance's mom, so I won't be too far. And she's actually moving there for a little while to be with him. But, I'm going there to, heal and find time to finish my writing and to work on my creativity and finish my education. And, it's been a lot. And I've really tried to be, I wouldn't say strong, because I'm not trying to be strong. I just am strong. Some people just are. And when you know the truth, you cannot turn the truth into anything other than the truth. And so when people try to lie over the truth grows. And the lie eventually, you can only lie so much over the truth. Eventually, the truth just shows. You can mask the truth, but the truth will reveal itself. And so science is turning out to be much different. And like Thomas Hertog said he could control the universe. I'm like, I seem to be observing God doing the controlling of himself. Um, because the thing I've learned about God is nothing can happen to you that you didn't let happen to someone else. So if you watched someone suffer and you didn't care, then the people that care, that you think care, when you suffer, they won't care. So I learned that I surrounded myself with people that I felt were less, um, were more needy than I was. And so I learned that those people thought they were surrounding themselves with someone that was more needy than they were. And they thought they were doing them a favor. Everybody always thinks everybody's doing everybody a favor. So I just stepped back. I stopped dating almost 4 years ago. And I just started studying. I started studying. I started spending time with my family. My son was in a coma in 2018. I was dealing with a lot before that. I was dealing with the chaos of some people in my life that were in vulnerable situations because they were desperate to gain money. No matter which way I looked, they all wanted a lot of money. And promises were broken to me. And so I know that because they wanted money, that I'll be the one that ends up making the most. And I don't even care. I don't even care because I'm the type of person that would help other people with it anyway. So I do care that I would be able to help people with it, but I don't care for myself. What I do care for myself in this lifetime, I want to buy myself a tiny house. I think they're so cute. And I want to have land so my dog can run outside, and I want my cats to be able to go outside again and be safe. I want to be able to buy a car. I want to be able to go on a vacation. I don't want complicated things. But because of the life I chose to live, that stuff I've really had to work on myself to get here. And that's part of physics. In order to understand physics, you have to include yourself in the equation. And you have to accept that you're just like everyone else. And even if you were Jesus, or even if you're God, and I'm not, but even if you're God, you would still be humble. You wouldn't think you deserved to be treated like a celebrity thinks they deserve to be treated, or a wealthy person that refuses to do any chores for themselves or anyone else, or teach their children how to do anything. If you expect that, then you are not noble, and you are not gracious, and you are not genuine or sincere. And so I don't want to be a negative creating and attracting negative. So I've been spending my time by myself a lot, and with my pets, and sometimes talking to the neighbors. I talk to Noah's friends from time to time, and they know me. I'm Mom, or I'm Aunt Tanya. But in scientists, these scientists, I remember one saying, whoever is writing this theory would have to be a very strong person. And I've learned it's more than strength. You have to be honest. You have to accept that you fuck up. You have to accept that you're not perfect. You have to accept that you did some dark things, and that you impacted other people's lives with what you wanted instead of what was best. I learned that breaking a promise means a promise will be broken. So I learned these things. I learned what cause and effect meant. I learned what integrity and ethics mean. And so I I have days where I say, but why do they still get to just live the dream? And then I remember, I'm like, oh wait, I was a lot of interesting people. And Albert Einstein worked on his theory for 10 years, and he couldn't even get a regular job. And so I'm in the same situation, only a little different. Now we have unemployment. And thank you, universe, because I was driving for Uber like 60 hours a week as I was dealing with all of reality. And so then I was able to collect unemployment. And, when I was working for Uber, I was dealing with a lot of different personalities. Some people were entitled. I'm like, oh, that's how I was. Ugh. But most of the people that were my passengers, some of them are my friends. Some of them are really, really nice, loving people, and I'm so glad that I met them. Um, but I would be sleeping in my car, and it's very humbling when you sleep in your car and you're looking for a place to eat, or looking for a restroom, or you're so tired and you end up pulling over in some random place in a neighborhood you've never been, just so you can sleep. And people walking by your car, and you've got a blanket and you're just trying to sleep. And then I ended up sleeping in my car when my son had his addiction, and he and his sister weren't getting along. So we would sleep in the car. All because someone wanted to keep all of a bunch of money that isn't important to them in their next life, because they don't get to keep it. And I look at the way I was treated And I think I was a really fucking awful person in my past life. I was an awful person. And but with good redeeming qualities, but my insecurities made me do awful things. And when people drink or do drugs, they tend to do awful things while they're on them, because the awful things that happen to animals that are tested on to create these things, it becomes part of reality, and it just keeps repeating itself. So anyway, I'm going to stop this video. It's gone on for almost 3.5 hours, and I can tend to talk a lot. And when I do this on Instagram, I'll have quite a few people just listening, and then the kids will ask questions. And I find it incredible that kids know that there's something they don't understand, and they know it's within their capability of understanding. And the thing is in physics, they don't make it easy to understand because they don't really know what it means. They just know, oh, this goes here and this goes there, and that's great. But God's like, they're not going to help you. Firstly, you're a female. Secondly, you don't have a formal college education in this field. Thirdly, they're going to be pissed off that it's freaking Marilyn Monroe as some old lady now who knows more about the universe than they do without paying college dues or anything. Trust me, I've paid my dues. God made sure I had enough. I've been a struggling student. I mean, I get to paint my walls. I get to decorate how I want. I get to dress how I want when I go to school. I pull out the computer and I read, or I have books, but I hardly ever use my books anymore. And I just Google, and or I paint, and I just know things. I just know. And so I've been given the gift of knowing, but God made sure that if I wanted to communicate with other people, I had to learn to speak their language. I had to learn what binary and duality and string theory and atoms, and I had to learn what all of this stuff was. I didn't really understand it, but I had to learn. And as I was listening to these lectures at Harvard or Stanford, and I'd listen to them over and over and over and over again, and I enjoyed it. But as I'm listening, I'm like, no, there was hypocrisy. It's inconclusive what he did. I was able to figure out what they were doing. They were excluding themselves from the equation, and they were assuming that humans were evolution. We're destruction. We're not evolution. We are the means to destroy the universe. We are the means to get rid of everything. That's what we are. We're just going to go back to pure energy again. And the reality is it would be the best thing for the whole universe if that's what the universe wants. So for me, I gave up my free will. I'm like, God, you deserve peace. The universe deserves just peacefulness. But then the universe also is very wise and knows, well, then it would just start all over again. But when we know better, we do better. But the thing is if the universe ended, the universe itself would be starting over. So just like you and I and everything, the universe is brilliant. Firstly, the universe is brilliant. Stephen Hawking was like, if there are aliens, they'll be much smarter than we are. I'm like, well, it's the universe, and it's way smarter than we are. But collectively, we have all the answers because we are the collective consciousness and physiological reality of God, of the universe. So if we all got together and say I'm doing a video and I'm saying all these things, and people would be able to stop crimes before they happen. For instance, the Florida school shooting. Right before it happened, I'm sitting there and I'm doing a video and I'm painting. I'm like, "La, la, la." I'm like, "Oh, look, I painted my dog Nikki. That's so weird. I painted my dog Nikki." And this is how I'm talking, right? I'm just innocent. And I start talking about my dad. Yeah, my dad's name is Douglas, and I have a brother named Phil Douglas. And then I dated this guy named Doug McCoy. Now, what do they all have in common? Douglas, the name Douglas. But that's only part of the name. And because my dad is Phil Douglas and my brother is Douglas Phillip and then Doug McCoy, but he doesn't have the same last name as my dad and my brother. And, but Doug McCoy is Douglas McCoy. But Doug is only part of the name. So there would have to be, everything would have to be. So the fact that there's 3 Douglases, but Doug is part of, Doug is what one goes by. My brother goes by Doug also, but my dad goes by Phil. And 2 of them are my relatives, and one of them isn't. So there are 3. The Parkland Douglas High School was the high school. And then I started talking about my ex being born on the 17th of July and my sister being born on the 17th of July and another ex born on the 15th of July. And because there were 2 number 17s and one was female, females can procreate, 17 people died and 17 people were injured. Then we have I only had one ex-husband, and so I started talking about my ex-husband, and he was a Florida Gator. So it was in Florida. And so this stuff starts telling you stuff. Everything's telling you a story before it happens. Everything is predicting everything that's going to happen. And then the school shooting happened. And I was just casually talking about people in my life. And my dog Nikki, and then I started talking about my friend Nicole. And then I had driven by this restaurant that was across the street from the park that I was with Noah at the Parkland, that Noah was, we ended up having his gathering. But there was this restaurant called Nick's, and it had a pig on the front of it. And when I drove by, I did a video on Facebook, and I said, "There's a killer in there." And Nick was the name of the killer, of the shooter. So I know things before they happen because I read the signs around me, literally the signs. And when I watch movies, earlier I was talking about, there's a movie with Melissa McCarthy. It's something intelligence. I can't remember the name of it. It's a new movie. But anyway, James Gordon, is that his name? Just Flash Gordon, which is telling me I need to put all of my information on a flash drive. Why? Because I already know there's going to be a breach and that all of social media is going to wipe out. Now, the funny thing is I knew that before I even saw the movie. And in 2008, I was on the phone and I thought I was talking to Perez Hilton. The guy sounded like Perez Hilton, exactly like him. And I even said, "My daughter loves you." And he goes, "That's fabulous. Now we need to punch in these numbers, and it's very sensitive, so keep punching in these numbers." And this person just kept asking me to put this series of numbers. Now this was before I understood quantum physics, and I it's before I understood how corrupt the government can be, and how these people that are going around talking about conspiracy theories, there's some validity to science experiments. I wouldn't call them conspiracy theories in so much as there are a select group of people in the world who do understand some of how the universe works, and they've tried to manipulate it, um, for their best interest. But the reality is the chaos is getting ready to ensue, and those people, the universe found a way to extract them from the equation for a while. And so collectively, the wealthier they became, the more power it gave the universe. And so you're going to see a lot of very, very wealthy people lose all of their money. And God did say, He giveth and He taketh away. And so that's what's happening. That's what's happening. And when you think of meek, people say the meek shall inherit the earth. What do you think of when you think of meek? I think of meek. Um, I think of peaceful energy that's just trying to eat, sleep, and contribute somehow in life and be there for one another. So I'm quite certain that in time, the universe will be a much different place. We won't have a government. We won't have a president. We won't be at war with anyone. And there will be much more. It won't even be prayer, it will be gratitude. There will be more practices of gratitude. There will be more people aware of a fruit and a vegetable is also energy experiencing reality. And that all energy is taking turns. Everything takes turns. And I just understand the universe in a very different way than a lot of other people do. So anyway, I'm gonna go. I know what there's something I want to do. Probably go study, finish watching the movie I was watching, and enjoy my peaceful evening. So anyway, it's 12:27 a.m. So 12:27, the two middle numbers are 22. The outside numbers are 7-1. That's Princess Diana's birthday. So I'm going to let you guys go at that.